All right, we are ready to get started. Somebody has their microphone on up here. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. All right, we're getting started. This is the City Council's regular meeting. I am calling it to order and giving notice that at this meeting, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for consultation and discussion with the city's attorneys. And can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sweet,
Here.
Councilmember Aslan,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember House, Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember Spence.
Here.
Thank you. I see Councilmember House online, but we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilmember Matthews, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Happy to. Please stand if you're able.
Councilmember Garcia, would you read our mission statement?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
And Councilmember Aslan, would you read our land acknowledgement?
Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. Next up is open call to the public, where the public can address the council about an item that is not on the printed agenda. You have 3 minutes. There is a clock down here right below me. And the first speaker is Rose Tohe.
Good afternoon, Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor Sweet, and Council Yahat for this day. Shay Yahai, Tachitni no Dainchni do, Kelachitni Bashichin, Ashkahadzoi da Chanel da Oshi da Shiche. That's who I am with my Dene clans. And I have our chair, one of our co-chairs for our Indigenous Commission here. The reason why I wanted to do a public comment was just to thank Mayor and Vice Mayor and also Councilmember Matthews as well as Garcia that they've been over at NACA where we had a proclamation for our murdered and missing Indigenous relatives. And I really appreciate that everybody showed up there. And I just wanted also to just give a highlights from some of the proclamation, which is about how our Indigenous women, girls, two-spirited and gender diverse individuals experience disproportionately high rates of violence, murder, and disappearance across the United States and Canada. And today, May 5th, is in remembrance of all our relatives that are missing or murdered. And I just wanted to give them some time to remember them. Our Native American women face new murder rates more than 10 times the national average in some jurisdictions, and with many cases going unreported and unresolved or lacking adequate investigations and accountability. And in remembrance of the countless Indigenous individuals impacted by violence, it is essential to raise awareness and support affected families and communities and advance justice and uplift their voices to to end this crisis and build a safer future for all of them, and including all relatives, no matter the color, that are murdered and missing. Just want to say that we honor them and that we have prayers for their families, that they are in a good place in lifting the voices of their relatives, so that things will happen, process will progress. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rose. Jessica Drum.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Jessica Drum, and I'm a Community Relations Manager with Northern Arizona Healthcare. And today I'm here to commemorate Women's Health Month. And to do so, we'd love to highlight a few resources and services that are available in our community to encourage women to take that step, get your health checkups, and take care of yourself. Women's Health Month intentionally coincides with Mother's Day as an annual reminder that women cannot let themselves fall into some of the health disparities that are faced throughout the United States. And something that I learned that maybe you are all aware of, but I was not until recently, that until 1993, clinical research done in the United States did not have to include women. So that means all the health studies, clinical research could include women, but did not have to. So the studies and the conclusions are based on male cells. Women do now make up half of all research participants in clinical research that's funded by the National Institutes of Health. But it means that basic research, and which was done ahead of clinical trials, is still more likely to be done on male cells. And at NIH, we have been focused on hiring providers of all backgrounds, walks of life, and genders. But here in Flagstaff, we recently hired a primary care provider, Dr. Leila Negrechi, who sees all patients, but she has particular expertise in menopause, perimenopause, and birth control, and is currently accepting new patients. She serves alongside more than a dozen providers at our primary care facility to ensure our community and the females in it have access to a provider who feels like a good fit for them. And women's health doesn't just apply to the examples that I gave related to women's reproductive health. We know from numerous studies that women are 50% more likely to delay their own health care than men are to delay their care. And so today we want to encourage you to set up an appointment. Women in the room, please set up an appointment with your primary care provider if you haven't seen them in more than a year. And if you don't have one, there are many options in Flagstaff, whether it be at NAH, Elk Ridge, or another private provider in our community. Please make the appointment. And preventative care is the best care, we know that. If you can screen for illnesses ahead of time, and the more advanced notice you have or early detection of treatable conditions, the better your outcomes are. So please, women in the room, if you haven't made an appointment in a year, make an appointment with your primary care provider. And to the men in the room, encourage the women in your lives to make those appointments and get that very important preventative care, and commemorate Women's Health Month that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, we're moving down to proclamations and recognitions, and we'll take these in order that they are on the agenda. And when we start the proclamation for, say, Economic Development Week, which is first, we'll invite everyone who's here for Economic Development Week to join us at the edge of the dais. I'll read the proclamation, we'll take a photo, and then if someone from your group would like to speak, you should do so. And then we'll go on to Ride Your Bike Week in Flagstaff. Thank you. Economic Development Week is an opportunity to recognize and thank everyone and all businesses that choose Flagstaff, the city of innovation, to be their home. Economic Development Week provides economic development professionals a platform to showcase to their community their contributions made to their local economy throughout the year. Economic development practitioners work to create resilient communities with resilient economies. The City of Flagstaff's Economic Development Program relies upon area partners as critical team members with whom support, trust, productivity, and integrity are fostered every day. The network of partners enhances the Flagstaff experience for all. We proudly highlight the incentive programs and collaborative initiatives that reinvest in our community, support business growth, and create shared prosperity for residents and entrepreneurs alike. Together, we celebrate a vibrant and resilient business community and look ahead with optimism and excitement for the future of Flagstaff's economic growth and innovation. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim May 4th through May 8th, 2026 as Economic Development Week.
Thank you, Mayor Daggett. Today, we're here just to recognize, celebrate the power of partnerships. That is the theme of Economic Development Week for 2026, something that truly drives our local economy forward. We're especially proud to highlight our past grant recipients. We have a total of 1 here. We've had a few invited, but 1 showed up, so thank you so much. Success reflects not only their vision and hard work, but also what's possible when the city invests alongside its entrepreneurs. This celebration is for all of you, and I would also like to recognize some of our other partners. We have the Small Business Development Center here. We also have ECONA, the Economic Collaborative of Northern Arizona, and we have Local First, all of which just, they're great partners with the Flagstaff Economic Development team. Thanks.
I have one little slide I want to show, so I'm going to switch around real quick. Thanks for waiting. Needs more power than the port can supply. We need more power in the whole region, let me just say. Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Jackson. I'm the president and CEO of ECONA, the Regional Economic Development Organization. I'm so grateful to be here today. I want to thank the council for taking this moment to celebrate Economic Development Week. This week is all about celebrating all of our work, and it's so good to see so many partners in the room. This is about the businesses who choose to invest here and the entrepreneurs who take risks and all of the employers who create jobs, as well as the partnerships that make economic development possible. So some of the things we've been working on at ECONA is, one of them is attitude towards development, and this is, part of that is a new and enhanced logo that had lots of partners' input on it, and we've managed to bring together a new website as well, and what I think is so important about this is what our region represents. As you can see, Flagstaff is in the center of it all. But each community brings something different, and we are a regional economy, and we are a competitive economy. So as you can see, Flagstaff is positioned as our innovative and education and technology hub. Winslow is positioned for industrial logistics and rail. Sedona, we have wellness and creative economy, and Camp Verde is our growth corridor. We're expecting a lot of manufacturing to take place there, with it being 60 minutes north of TSMC. And of course, Coconino County is a stewardship for natural resources and a great outdoor economy. The beautiful thing about this is that we are 4 communities, we're 1 county, and we're 1 region, and together we have a strong future. So I want to thank you all. I want to also give an update on how we're advancing workforce housing conversations. We have about 5,000 housing units in the region towards the 15,000 shortage. We're also positioning our land and infrastructure for future investment, as you can see here as well. So as we celebrate this week, I want to thank you all for your leadership and making smart decisions that help our businesses stay here and grow here. Thank you.
Anyone here for the Ride Your Bike Week? Can you come on up? Oh, you are. Hi. How are you? Good to see you. Hi. Hello. I didn't want to call you out. Okay. All right. Bicycling represents one of the most environmentally responsible, clean, efficient, economic, and healthy forms of transportation. The City of Flagstaff and Flagstaff Biking Organization recognize the importance of a bicycle-friendly community. Ride Your Bike Week raises public awareness about the need to improve bicycle infrastructure in the community to encourage more people to commute by bicycle. Bicycling improves air quality, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and supports Flagstaff's carbon neutrality goals. Bicycling enhances mobility and helps manage traffic congestion. Bicycling is an excellent low-impact aerobic activity that improves health and reduces stress. Riding a bicycle helps all of us connect to our community and feel a sense of place. Now, therefore, I, Vice Mayor Miranda Sweet, on behalf of Mayor Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, do hereby proclaim May 10th through the 16th, 2026 as Ride Your Bike Week in Flagstaff.
I've been here before. Good evening. So we are very excited for next week. We have lots going on. The biggest thing is we have the bike challenge from Sunday through Saturday. So if you ride your bike for mountain biking, commuting, whatever, make sure you log your ride. We have wonderful prizes from our wonderful businesses here in town. Sunday, we're kicking off Farmers Market, so we'll have Bike Jeopardy, some info. We're having the Iron On t-shirt press is coming back. Monday, we have the kickoff ride here at City Hall at 7 a.m. There's going to be coffee and donuts, so come and get some of that and sign a waiver online first, please, if you could. That'll help us greatly. Tuesday is Bike to School and the ice cream social at Seacrest at 4 o'clock, so come get some free ice cream from Shamrock and enjoy cones. And then Wednesday's our Bike to Breakfast event in the morning with various places around town. Thursday is Bike to Dine Out plus the Mars Hill Challenge. Friday is Bike to Work Day, but then there's also happy hour at DSB patio. And then finally on Saturday, there's Bike to Shop. There's shopping offers online. So if you want any more information, we have flagstaffbiking.org. It has all the details and all the projects we're working on with FBO.
Is anyone here for Law Day? Come on down, law people. The Declaration of Independence recognizes that all individuals possess fundamental rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The rule of law, as defined by the World Justice Project, refers to a system of self-government in which the government and all individuals are held accountable to a set of fair, publicized, and broadly understood laws that are evenly enforced. The rule of law protects the rights necessary for each person to pursue their own happiness, their own vision of the American dream, the belief that hard work can produce a better life. Today, as the rule of law and the American dream face significant challenges, their enduring strength and vitality are enhanced by public education and understanding about our rights and responsibilities. The American dream of individual and national prosperity is both dependent upon and critical to public liberty and social equality. The rule of law ensures that no single person or the government is above the law, and that all persons, regardless of their status, must be treated equally under the law, and that no one will be denied liberty or property without due process. The rule of law promotes stability, certainty, and opportunity, enabling individuals, families, homeowners, workers, and businesses to pursue economic security and prosperity. Now therefore I, Mayor Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 7th, 2026 as Law Day. We encourage everyone to consider ways to advance the rule of law and protect the rights, freedoms, and opportunities that ensure all persons in America have the ability to pursue and fulfill their American dreams throughout the year.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Juliana Bybee, and I'm a program coordinator at Superior Court, as well as a member of the Law Day Committee. Law Day is celebrated every year across the country, including here in Flagstaff. It highlights the importance of the rule of law in our daily lives. Each year, we open the Superior Court to students and members of the public so they can learn more about the justice system, and students take part in mock trials and have the opportunity to interact with judges, attorneys, and other members of the legal community. They see the process in action and connect the work of our courts. This year, Law Day will be held on May 7th from 9:50 a.m. to approximately 12 p.m. at Superior Court, and we welcome the community to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's it. All right, moving down to council liaison reports. I will start with Councilmember Matthews. Let's start with Councilmember Aslan so that you can look up what you're looking up.
Yeah, happy to help Councilmember Matthews stall a little bit. So this month we had, for my liaison reports, Sustainability Commission, Tourism Commission, and the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership. The Sustainability Commission met last Thursday, and Teresa Tang is our new waste prevention specialist. She introduced herself. Two new commissioners also introduced themselves, Aubrey Ridge and Alyssa Kuzikian. Sarah Decker gave an overview of the presentation of the 2045 regional plan, which I hope you are all voting on and turning in your ballot, and answered questions from the commissioners. Diane Bridger gave a brief presentation on progress and updates to the carbon neutrality plan. specifically highlighting plans to launch the new public-facing dashboard, which is coming soon. And we held chair and vice chair elections, confirming Amy Wolkowinski and Mary Metzger as chair and vice chair, respectively. For tourism, it was pretty typical attractions report given by Heather Craig of Lowell Observatory, and director and staff reports, which can be found as a PDF attached to the agenda, posted on the city website. And finally, for the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership, we had a presentation from the mayor of Page around the City of Page data center experience. There were also committee reports, government technical advisory report, where we talked a lot about the field trip that's coming up. It's going to be a float down, oh my gosh, which creek is it? Thank you, Clear Creek. And Emily Melhorn gave us a public outreach report, and we had a member roundtable. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews.
After all that waiting, all of my stuff is not liaison, it's updates on events, so I will say nothing for right now.
Councilmember Garcia.
Nothing new today, Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of things. An update on Mountain Line. They have completed a public comment period and are preparing to launch new services in August. There's a lot of great updates. You can find it out on their website. It includes expansion out to over by Public Works out that way on Old 66. And pretty exciting to see the frequency increase, and hopefully that will help with ridership. MetroPlan has a board meeting on Thursday at 1, and this month it's held here in council chambers. And BPAC has their meeting 4 o'clock on Monday, and it is also here at City Hall. Thank you.
Councilmember House, is your sound working? Apparently not. Oh, can you? Yes. Oh, that's someone typing to her. Councilmember Spence.
Nothing today.
Nothing from me. So we will let that get sorted out. Next up, we have appointments. This round of appointments is for the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living, and there are 5 to make. So we will start with Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was truly an honor to reach out to most of the 7 finalists and applicants that we had for this committee with such robust interpersonal relationships and connection to the adaptive living community. And it was quite a heck of a choice, but we had such high quality, qualified folks applying that it was also in some ways easy. I am happy and proud to nominate James Martinez, a new applicant to this commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up is Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate Caitlin Peterson to the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Next up is me. I would like to nominate current Commissioner Keith Becker. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Councilmember Matthews?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Ashani Earl.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And finally, Councilmember Spence.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate Paige Philippek.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you all. Okay, we have one liquor license at our public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing and staff will, wait a minute, do we have one? Yes. And staff will give a presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Juliana Stasky, Deputy City Clerk. Before you today is a liquor license application for a new application of a Series 5 government license for NAU Performing and Fine Arts, located at 1115 South Knowles Drive. The agent and the owner on the application is Rosalita Wilson. The Police Department and Planning and Development Services have conducted their respective investigations, and those reports are in the agenda packet. And representatives from the division are here, along with representatives from the business who are invited to attend the hearing today.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Georgiana or for the applicant? All right. We have no public comment. I am closing the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we forward the application to the state with a recommendation to approve.
I'll second.
Second.
We have 3 seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. So consent agenda. All matters under consent agenda are considered by the council to be routine unless a member of the city council or the public expresses a desire at the meeting to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion. The consent agenda will be enacted by one motion approving the recommendations listed on the agenda. Unless otherwise indicated, expenditures approved by council are budgeted items. So we have items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and that's it. Are there any?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
If they're prepared to do so, I would like a little introduction or presentation about the landscape project happening on, this is item A, with Kinney Construction Services on Route 66 and Ponderosa Parkway. Just something brief if available.
Yes, come on. Are you coming to speak to this, to the Kinney? Okay. So let's go ahead and take motions for 9B through H, and then we'll come back to A.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve which one are we on? Sorry. 9B through H of the consent agenda as posted.
B through H.
B through H.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We're ready for a couple of comments about the Route 66 and Ponderosa Parkway landscape project.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Dave Nixon with Capital Improvements. And this is a pretty straightforward landscape project that's on the southwest and the southeast corner of Route 66. And I believe its genesis was to gussy up that area for the 100-year centennial. So it's basically a minor grading project, irrigation, and planting on that side of the Route 66. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Jana, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to add that this replicates a project that we did a few years ago at Route 66 in Fanning. It's almost the exact same kind of design style, and it's kind of a continuation of that beautification of Route 66 that we've undergone over the last several years.
Thank you. Councilmember Aslan?
Thank you very much. I realized I didn't prepare you ahead of time that I would call this up, but I thought it was worth highlighting. Thank you.
My pleasure, yeah.
So I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item A, 9A.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the job contract with Kinney Construction Services in the amount of $247,944.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we're down to 10 routine items. The first is a consideration and approval of a memorandum of understanding between the city and the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff.
Good afternoon again, Mayor Daggett and council. This afternoon. I want to say also thank you to city leadership and also all the relatives in the audience and online. Thank you for this time. Again, my clans are Tachini no Dae, Kanlachini Bashashin, Ishkanso Dashanala, Ashin Dashache, Ishkanso Dashanala. So, my name is Rose Tohi, and I am the Indigenous Affairs Administrator here at the city. I'm here with my very best friend for right now, Amy Hagan. She's going to jump in whenever there are questions that I am not able to answer. She and Rebecca have been so helpful in this whole process, as well as some of our core team members that have been meeting. We do have a short presentation, and about the memorandum of understanding, and we will be focusing on that right now. And this is just to give you a glimpse of what has occurred and all the things that, not everything, but just a few things. It's only 8 slides, but things that have happened to help us come to this date. And I really appreciate that. So just a little bit of history on the Indigenous Community Cultural Center for this regarding this MOU. Discussions about the Indigenous Community Cultural Center has been in this community for decades. But in 2016 and in 2017, progress really became reality. And in partnership between ICF, Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff, and City Council and city leadership, the Indigenous-led ICF commenced community forums, which took place in these 2 years. Many Indigenous community members, including large numbers of youth, attended these forums. And then there were 6 forums that brought discussion on youth, education, homelessness, the elders, economic development and contribution, police and criminal justice, and environmental justice. So out of these forums, there were produced the recommendations, including the dream of the ICCC. And these recommendations were accepted by City Council in October of 2017. And those recommendations are listed in your packets. This is the 8-acre parcel that is which will include the Indigenous Community Cultural Center. So through many discussions in 2019, a possible site was identified. And then in 2021, Southwest Decision Resources and Wheat Design Group were contracted to oversee a public engagement for this parcel. In 2022, a thorough public engagement was provided, and it also resulted in 3 concepts, which were brought to City Council at that time. And then in December 2022, a final concept with recommended changes was approved by City Council. We had the procurement process regarding the ICCCC. In December 2024, the city launched the RSOQ, and that is Request for Statement of Qualifications to identify a key partner. And then in May 2025, ICF was identified as the nonprofit organization as the key partner. And then in July 2025 through January 2026, these discussion meetings with ICF and our internal core staff met to finalize the MOU. The purpose of our MOU is to enable ICF and City of Flagstaff to collaborate in the development of the ICCC. In regard to the general roles and responsibilities, the planning and design and development of appropriate ICCC space would be ICF primary responsibility for the vision, excuse me, it's allergy season, for the vision and implementation of the ICC and its programming. Identification of a location for viable and feasible ICF space during the development of the ICCC. In regard to this includes some preliminary conversations as to what the ICF office space would look like, depending on recent developments of contractors who walk through the building and then their reports back. And then it may also include the expenditure of earmarked funds within the PRO's budget of $200,000. ICF will also be responsible for the renovation of the fleet management building, which is the future ICCC, including the City of Flagstaff collaboration when it involves city funds. ICF will further assume primary responsibility for fundraising with assistance from the City of Flagstaff. They will hire personnel using secured donor funds and develop organizational structure to allow the management of this Indigenous Community Cultural Center. They also will be responsible for developing the programming for the ICCC and then develop plans for specific outdoor spaces in coordination with the Thorpe Park Annex Concept Plan. And that's the one, the map you already was up there. Timelines for the following remains in development, and that is for the building repair and renovation, fundraising, and then ICF organizational development, and then continued program development. Those are our next steps. And this is the building that we're talking about, that we have lots of hopes and dreams about and for. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much. We have a comment from Councilmember House, if her microphone is working. And we're going to stop after this item, and yes, we can try CJ real quick.
Check, check, check.
We hear you.
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can now.
All right, Councilmember House, go ahead and try and make your comments and see if the room can hear you.
All right, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! So thank you, Rose, for the presentation. I just wanted to thank you and the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff for your ongoing work and dedication to the vision for the Indigenous Community Cultural Center. I know that years of effort, care, and community voice have gone into the development of this cultural resource and Center for Historical Representation, preservation, and honoring of the Indigenous cultures and communities of Flagstaff and our region. I wanted to voice that support, my continued commitment to, and just my deep gratitude for this tangible opportunity to continue moving Flagstaff from the important process of land acknowledgement to the equally important work of land action, which is something that we heard from one of the youth in our community a couple of years ago as just an important movement to make. I would love to be involved or supportive of efforts of outreach and continued partnerships to find opportunities for funding or fundraising or other efforts to see this through, and just look forward to the continued work. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember House. We appreciate that.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Rose, for the presentation, and thank you to the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff for your continued motivation and helping us envision what the future could look like in this space that it looks like is going to be kept primarily intact naturally in a way that is somewhat untouched from where it is today. And that's my hopes for this moving forward, is that we're able to at least, no matter what gets developed throughout the city and how things change, that we're able to keep a cultural ground where things, the nature of things remains the same. So that way we can, be rooted in where we came from and help teach the traditions and the legacy of your people who have taught us how to be stewards of the land and be cognizant of all that is around us. I know that you probably aren't here to answer this type of question today, but if it's possible, can you give us a sneak peek on some of the ideas that are brewing around the future of this, even if it's just speculative at this point?
Yes, I think that one of the main things that is the idea is to have it be a platform for educational purposes for our community, whether it be for Indigenous youth in combination with elders, but it would be a teaching and educational platform for our community, the whole community, and then also to bring in and to share the space whenever, there's special things going on within the community where people need space. Sometimes our Indigenous leaders from outside and surrounding areas, they need a place to meet. And sometimes they really want to just be here where our sacred mountain is, and that will be a place that they can meet and talk about future things for their native lands out there. And then also some artists, we want to bring artists in to see and have them sell their wares. And then we also want to make sure that the building somehow becomes a museum, a living museum where people can really learn, step inside and learn about Indigenous lifeways, culture, and even language revitalization. There's just a whole host of things that could happen and that we could share with community. And that had been the vision of ICF when they started as a grassroots organization a decade ago, say another decade. So now it's come to this part, and I'm really thankful today for the rain because it's a sign that says that what we're putting forward has been blessed.
Yes, it felt like an absolute blessing when I was walking in here. So thank you for helping me contextualize and understand that even something as great as the rain can help solidify some of the moves that we're making inside of here. And I know that this has been a long time coming, and I've seen it from the outside for quite some time. But I would like to offer that this is happening in perfect timing. And when it gets settled, it'll be at the right time for all the right reasons. And also, I'd like to highlight that we're taking something that was somewhat industrial by nature and turning it into some kind of going back to where we came from with something cultural. And I'm very supportive of this, and I'm excited to see what happens with it. Thank you so much for staying the course.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Rose, one of the slides said that ICF, with the assistance of the City of Flagstaff, would do fundraising. Can you expand on that just a little bit? Like, are we using our grants and department, or what does that mean exactly?
Mostly it means that we're going to be able to maybe have some of grant information that maybe city comes across, because I know that our people who write for grants come across a lot of different ways to raise funds. And some of our internal core members have mentioned that there are grants out there that ICF could write for, and sometimes maybe in conjunction with some help from me or others who have more information on how to go about these grants. So I think that's one of the main things that would be done. But for right now, we have PROS has been really helpful in just saving us a little bit of money to put towards us as a city, to put towards the ICCC.
And I was curious, is there an official lease that's signed? And I'm asking this because I know when we did an event, was it last year, kind of a farmer's market and stuff, it was going through PROS. So with this MOU, will ICF be able to just plan their own events and occupy the property, or still go through the same processes as if they were using a city park or property?
Right now, there's some land around the, I think it's in your packet under the, but anyway, under the, let me see if it's in here. So the orange area around the city, the building, that's something that the ICF can utilize, including the traditional space to the east of the building. That's something that they can utilize outside for events in the meantime, because they can't really get into the building yet. So they're going to go ahead, and that will be without permit. If other areas of the property will be used, then it'll still go through a permitting process, just like with all other organizations. But for the orange part, that they won't have to permit on that.
That's good to know. And lastly, are we far enough down the road where we have, like, the first benchmark of fundraising that ICF needs to reach in the first year or first 5 years to get their first stage done?
I think they're pretty much there. Back up to your question on the lease. This was the first step. The MOU has to be the first step according to the RSOQ. From there, we're going to dive into what looks best and what will fit best the ICF organization regarding some sort of occupancy document, whatever that looks like, whether it be a lease or license or something else. So that's going to be something that we'll be talking about next and seeing where that goes. Of course, Amy can talk to maybe something that will clarify that a little bit better. But as far as fundraising is concerned, ICF has garnered some funds, and their donors are waiting for the MOU to be finalized and approved by City Council before that release of funds can be done. So they have some pretty good money right now.
Great, that's so good to hear. I know this has been, I think, more than a decade for this property, but longer than a decade for just the ICCC to be somewhere. So I'm really excited to see us to this spot, but I'm really anxious to see actually activities that we can utilize before we can occupy the building and just really get the momentum going. So I'm happy to see this stage, even though it's the speed of government, that we're moving along. So thank you so much.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you, Rose, for the update and the presentation. You know, I'm very supportive of this and always wanting to look at it from so many angles, and we'll continue to do that, and I'm glad to hear this update. It's a good one. I do believe this is an important step towards honoring and uplifting our Indigenous voices and culture in our community. So this is very special. I've been out there and went to the farmers market and saw the vendors, and it was such a good event, and I would like to see more of that, so I'm happy to hear we're getting close to that. I do think that this reflects years of community vision and commitment, and I can tell you that you have my commitment in this as well, so thank you again for the update.
I see the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. I just want to thank you for being such an incredible partner to the entire community and to the city of Flagstaff. From the town halls, conversations that you had, where you gathered so much information from members of this community and members outside the community, to bringing this vision to life, even though it's been a long process. You've just been such an outstanding partner, and I appreciate all of your work.
Mayor, can I make a motion? No.
Would you like to say something?
Yes, I just want to, first off, yet as she Pam Jensen and she, ki on in Schlitz at Najini Bush's chain, does the Thunder Dash chain Nakadene Dashanella. I'm originally from Tuba City area, and my clans are Towering House, born for Dark Street Woods people. My paternal are, Mexican people clan. My maternal are Mini Goats. I'm originally from Tuba City, and I am chair for Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff, and just really honored to be part of this next phase, honestly. This has been quite a vision for ICF. I've been in this position for a year and a half now as chair, and it's just following through with those next steps with our board, our support with the partnership with the city, and just grateful for those next steps. So thank you, I appreciate it, and just, you know, whatever we can do. And I want to see if anybody else. Hi, let's see who. Chris Jocks, who is co-chair with me, wasn't able to attend, but I'd like to read what he put together. He's out at a conference today, and just want to at least give his words here because, again, he's part of the beginning of a lot of this, and a lot of the folks that are in the room in the back here. I feel like I'm still new to this, but man, I'm just really proud of the work that they put into it, and just seeing this vision move forward is just such a blessing. Chris notes, good afternoon, my name is Chris Jocks. The promise of the center and gathering place to Indigenous youth, elders, and families in Flagstaff arose in 1970, he states, and it's now approaching reality as the Indigenous Community Cultural Center for Flagstaff. The ICCC, I've been involved with this initiative from the earliest conversations with the City of Flagstaff officials back in 2018, and I am honored to see this day. The MOU proposed, the MOU proposes your approval sets out the respective rights and responsibility of Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. ICF and the City of Flagstaff during the interim period of design and renovation. From the beginning, the ICCC has been designed to benefit and enrich not only Indigenous youth, elders, and families, but every citizen of Flagstaff. I am certain that that it will enrich all of our lives. Let me see. I'm standing here without glasses, so I apologize. I'm trying to read this. And he just notes that, I'm certain that this will enrich all lives, all the lives. The building, community, and understanding, kinship, and well-being. Please vote yes to this agreement, is what he noted. So just wanted to share that piece. I know he wasn't able to attend, but just grateful for this next step. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews, did you want to make a motion?
I do, Mayor. It's my honor to request approval that we approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Flagstaff and ICF and authorize the city manager to execute the necessary documents.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
I'll second.
I heard that, Councilmember House. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to public hearing items. Consideration and adoption of resolution and ordinance regarding data centers. And City Manager, did you want to, before we get into this, say anything?
Mayor, I do not. I'll make some comments at the end. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I just want to assure the public that we are not voting tonight on the code, nor are we considering a data center. That was out on social media, and that is not something that we are considering. So we will have a staff presentation, and we will take public comment, and then I ask council to hold comments and questions, because this is coming back to us for a vote, and we'll have the full discussion at that point. So I'm going to open the public hearing and have the presentation.
Actually, it was opened back when we continued it, so we're just moving forward with what was already open.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That was several weeks ago, right? All right. Tiffany, please.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I got the memo about color coordinating, so I really appreciate that for including me tonight. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tiffany Antal, Zoning Code Manager. Tonight, I'm here to give you an update on the Data Center Land Use Zoning Code Text Amendment. The Data Center Text Amendment was initiated in response to growing nationwide and statewide discussions about the rapid expansion of data center development and the potential impact these facilities may have on local communities. Staff reviewed the city zoning code and identified that existing land use categories could allow data centers without tailored mitigation measures to ensure alignment with community goals, infrastructure capacity, and long-term planning objectives. This amendment is meant to be a proactive approach to dealing with the data center land use issue and is not in regard to any current application. We have not had any pre-application meetings. We currently do not have any development applications for data centers. This was simply just meant to be a proactive approach. To address the gaps that we found in the zoning code, staff prepared a draft amendment that would limit data center development to the heavy industrial zone, require approval through a conditional use permit, and establish specific use standards related to design consideration, noise levels, water use, and energy demands. During initial discussions, the Planning and Zoning Commission requested that staff also prepare an alternative amendment that would implement an outright ban on data centers within the city of Flagstaff. This ban-focused draft was developed under a compressed timeframe and was not vetted through a broader community engagement process. Additionally, the scope of this draft was not clearly communicated in legal notices for the proposed text amendment, resulting in concerns about insufficient public awareness and input. After extended consideration, staff respectfully requests that the City Council close the public hearing and allow for a comprehensive evaluation of the potential implications of a complete ban on data centers within the City of Flagstaff. Further analysis is needed to understand how such a prohibition could affect current and future business operations, as well as broader economic and infrastructure considerations. Additionally, more time is necessary to assess how the proposed definition of data center may impact existing uses and emerging technologies that rely on similar infrastructure. Ensuring that the definition is clear, appropriately scoped, and aligned with the city's long-term goals is essential to avoid unintended consequences for local businesses and future development. Additional time will support a more informed decision-making process and allow staff, stakeholders, and the community to explore all potential outcomes moving forward. And with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to try and answer them.
I'm going to jump straight to public comment.
Mayor, before you do that, can I just make a quick comment after Tiffany's comments? I just want to say thank you to the team that has worked on this. It's been a very thoughtful approach, and I think just the pivoting to allow for additional time and for more public comment was something that we felt very strongly needed to happen. I will commit to council today. We've had many discussions about issues of high interest and bringing those back to council. And while we do not have any data center proposals that have been made to the city, if there is one kind of during this time frame where we're vetting a new code amendment, I will bring that back to council at an appropriate time. So I just wanted to relay that to you today before you take public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we do have some public comment. First, we have Kira Russo.
Good afternoon, Council, and thank you for your service to our community. I am here representing the Friends of the Rio de Flag. I sit on the board there. And the first thing that I'd like to say, as a political scientist, just a little bit of background for the record. So AI data centers were fast-tracked during the last federal administration. This administration rescinded that order, and then also fast-tracked data centers, but with the limited recognition that Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act would apply. So just putting that out there. And then in terms of water use for a small data center, as you know, west of the 100th meridian, our landscape is characterized as arid. You know, we live in an area of aridity. And so, you know, in terms of the water use that even a small data center would use, that would be close to 360,000 gallons of water per day. We generally in Flagstaff, our water use per household is about 85 gallons of water per day. You know, in terms of land use and jobs that would be created for data centers, there's an initial surge of jobs, you know, having to do with construction. Of course, we support our construction industry here, but that minimizes, that diminishes right after the data center is built. And so with regard to what we know about data centers at this time, nationally, we just don't know that much. You know, we're learning. And I love the idea. I think it's an excellent idea to expand the period of time that we're talking about this, that we see what the values of the community are, see what pollution is generated as we watch people throughout the nation who are in the process of using data centers. With regard to recycled water, just with my last few minutes or my last few seconds, my understanding is that a lot of data centers will propose recycling water. If you'll read a Politico article that just this morning. There's a data center that was proposed in Tennessee that started off wanting to recycle, and they are not able to do it. Energy use also is extremely high. We think that that our natural lands or our natural resources can be much better used in this community. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Michelle James.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Michelle James. I'm Executive Director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future. F Cubed has carefully looked at into the impacts of data centers across the country with a focus on the community of Flagstaff. We've concluded that this type of land use is not compatible with our city. F Cubed has come to the conclusion that the best way to protect the Flagstaff community is to enact a ban on data centers in city limits. I'm very glad to hear you guys are looking into that more completely. Data centers that are not ancillary to other primary land uses, as described in the exceptions section of the staff report, should not be permitted in the city of Flagstaff. The reasons are many and include Flagstaff has declared a climate emergency with a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. That's the carbon neutrality plan. Allowing a carbon-intensive industry such as data centers is in direct contradiction to the goals of our city. The potential for hazardous chemical outflows from a data center cooling system could further strap the city's already stretched wastewater treatment plants. The noise impacts of data centers, including constant infrasound, could negatively affect residents who live near such a center. There is little to no benefit to the community of a data center in our city. The benefits will go to a small number of ultra-wealthy, while the community may see a handful of jobs after initial construction, which may or may not utilize local workers. F-Cube recognizes the city's concern about potential legislative pushback, such as state preemption of a local ban. However, the limited amount of heavy industrial zone land suitable for a data center within city limits, combined with the financial cost of issuing a permit and the potential negative impacts on air quality, water, resources, and community noise, outweighs the benefits, making the efforts unjustified for the city. We urge the City Council to stand firmly for what is best for Flagstaff and its residents, and that is a ban on data centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Norton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mary Norton. Disclosing, as you know, I do serve as Vice Chair of Planning and Zoning Commission, which we already have seen this case. However, this evening I am speaking for myself. After watching last month's council presentation from various staff departments on data centers, I came here tonight to really listen on how those ideas could actually effectually be put into code and the requirements of a CUP. I would have had the type of questions on how the type and function of a data center could be so narrowly defined by a CUP, as there seems to be interest in a lower level, small co-location data center, but yet how can a permitted use of a data center in a zone be limited to just the co-location server storage only? In the same vein, we can't tell a high-density multifamily developer to limit their use to only workforce apartments and not student housing or high-end luxury lifestyle rentals. And to sell the idea that a co-location data center might be okay is making huge assumptions that businesses around the city would actually want to make a move off-site. As an allowed use, regardless of CUP, it is an allowed use. And in a strong property rights state, that is often argued, which opens the door to challenges of a very restrictive CUP. As a P&Z commissioner, we're often reminded that when reviewing a CUP, that at its foundation, it is an allowed use, and denying CUPs are often difficult to defend and will likely be challenged. Another concern that wasn't sufficiently addressed at the presentation is the low-level infrasound of data centers, which are detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of a community for miles. We have limited industrial land parcels, heavy or light, available for our city's needs. Let's leave those industries that directly would benefit our community and, frankly, since I serve on Open Space Commission as well, the juxtaposition of a resource-eating, noisy data center near the conservation lands of Picture Canyon with ancient petroglyphs is really too much to fathom. So I'm pleased to see that the recommendation tonight is to research and rework the verbiage seriously to consider a ban on data centers in all zones citywide. I support this wholeheartedly, but this work needs to be done ASAP with high priority. We've openly exposed the holes in our code. KNAU published an article on April 30th that companies are now looking to northern Arizona for more land and power as they expand in Arizona, which is already in the top 10 states for data centers. Flagstaff needs to say no boldly, proudly, and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mary, one moment. Councilmember Garcia has a question for you.
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Norton, and thank you for your service for our community. You mentioned the CUP process, the challenges that it creates, and I wanted to know if you needed any extra room to expand on that. Some of the things that piqued my attention were when you mentioned that it's hard to unravel once you have the CUP in place, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that, to clarify for me.
Yes, you know, when we see a CUP, you know, we look at, obviously staff has already looked at that they're within these parameters. And so when it's coming to us, it's an allowed use. And if they're meeting these extra guardrails, it's really difficult to deny it. And I think something for like a data center, it's so much bigger than that. I think there's things in this more expanded CUP that are going to be really, really difficult to hone in on, and it's ever changing. I mean, these data centers and how they operate and what they can come up with or change in the way that they operate. You know, I mean, I think we're always going to be chasing it, and I think there's always going to be a loophole in it. I think we're always going to be subject to not being able to deny it or be challenged by it. I saw some interviews for, you know, a data center case down in, I think it was in Surprise, and, you know, it's the same land use lawyers that we see come up here to visit us that are able to argue why they should be allowed, why it's an allowed use. And that's where I think that, you know, we're walking such a fine line and that we wouldn't be able to pull up against it.
Thank you, Mary. And Madam Mayor, I have one more quick question, please. So I was also wanting to, and I'm not here to put you on the spot. If you don't feel comfortable answering this question, I totally understand it. But while you were explaining yourself clearly to me and helping me understand where you sit, I was also thinking, do you think that there's an avenue with the way that everything is constantly evolving and changing within these data centers for us to actually specify how to stop one when maybe we would only be speaking to one specific or current trend of data center, which could evolve, which we would have to then go to another, you know, I'm balancing the CUP process with being able to identify each and every one that comes in front of us and fight it out, however, against trying to figure out the right way to address all of them in one no.
Right. You know, what I can only rely on is I've served for like about 4 years. I've learned a lot from Tiffany, if she's here, wherever she went, you know, as they make their presentations. And, you know, there's just this foundational allowed use. And I think when we start getting into, you know, picking apart what can be allowed, what can't be allowed, because we're not allowed to do that anywhere else with any other kind of a development. How are we going to be able to sort of defend ourselves, explain ourselves that we're allowed to do it in this case? And I think I still go back to some of my comments that I made in our P&Z. I think with our regional plan, I don't think it's far off to say it's not compatible in city limits. So those are all the things that influence my personal decision, as well as how I've presented them in my volunteer on the commission. So
I value your opinion and your voice. Thank you for answering those.
thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Councilmember Matthews, you had a question?
I did, Mayor, thank you. City Manager, you had made a comment that if, while we are working through research and making sure we come back with a good, solid recommendation, if something was to present itself in Flagstaff, an interested party to bring a data center in, and I know if this is too much of a legal question, I don't want to go into E-session, we can address it later, but are we able to pivot and make a decision quickly that could adjust that or stop that? Or if somebody came in, looking at, like the big warehouse off Huntington, if they bought it and they're already putting in, their plans and stuff, is that too late?
I think you can answer it without getting into the legal side of it, yeah.
Mayor and Councilmember Matthews, it would go through our regular process that we would go through. And, that does take some time. So I think the commitment that I made earlier was that if we did get a heads up that we have somebody that's interested in coming in for a pre-app, for example, that I would bring that to council as a heads up. I don't know if staff wants to talk about, Tiffany, I think, can maybe talk about this in a little more detail.
Sure, about what the process looks like. So, it would depend on which zoning category we were working with, but most likely, if it's going to be a permitted by right zone, it would work through pre-application. We would approach, these are uses that are going to require impact analyses, which generally have a more extended review timeframe. So generally, for a by right project, comes in for pre-app, we identify any impact analysis that's required. We do have a framework to start from and a lot of research that's been done. So there's a lot of things we would, no matter what, try to do in working with an applicant in dealing with a data center. So there's lots of really great information for staff to already draw from, even if it's not currently in the code. And then they would go to site plan review and approval and move on. If it is in the light industrial zone, it would require conditional use permit, require a public hearing before Planning and Zoning Commission, then could be appealed to City Council. I hope that's helpful as to what the process could look like. But our goal is to immediately regroup, come back with some public outreach, and hit a Planning and Zoning work session, come back with a City Council work session with a lot of different options, and then regroup and get you the best zoning code text amendment you could possibly have.
And just to state one more time, we have not had any applications submitted for the city of Flagstaff, correct, Tiffany?
That is correct, not a one. We just wanted to be proactive.
Thank you. All right, I am going to close the public hearing, and
Mayor, I think we had, was there more?
oh, I'm sorry, there is a online commenter. I apologize for missing that. Go ahead.
We have one online comment. Brad, you may start.
Red. My name is Brad Follett. I'm the founder of Earth Month and the CEO of Earth Month Network down here in Maricopa, Arizona. I had submitted to the city council and the city my comments for adaptation of the city code. At this present time, I'd like to interject some additional points of consideration. First of all, on April 21st, we submitted a request to Attorney General Chris Mays to place a moratorium on data centers, primarily for water, energy, and environmental use. If you have to, I would contact them and join them and trying to work something out to see if you want to put a moratorium or a strict ban on them. First of all, we wanted to thank the team for Flagstaff for the work that they've done in trying to get ahead of this before the ball starts rolling. Most communities don't do this. I'd like to add a subject here as to the noise that data centers bring up. You have a decibel reading from various types of equipment overlapping one another. Much worse is the variable array of different frequency ranges. They are usually considered only within the human range for hearing, but studies show that frequency does affect human health, especially in children and also wildlife. You may also know of a technology, this term is sonic energy, is utilized in water and other solutions to clean parts, automotive parts, electrical parts, and it's so strong that it causes harms to humans within the vicinity of a tank. Research continues on this harm, but also from electromagnetic energy and that from 5 and 6G from our cell phones. Another form of what we need to look at is economics. Economics is a real important issue that the city has to look at. The trend for principals during an application negotiations for a center, no matter what type, is they all want to a reduction in taxes and would offer a deferral or an adjustment. They would offer a finding up to the city for a financial building of a park or some other function that the city may want or need. This is the hook. This is the hook that overrides the city's true needs for if they want a data center and what they really want, and overrides what the citizens may want. I really do love Flagstaff. I thought about moving there. I don't know if you have room for an organization like mine up there. I'm sure you do. I'll be there on May 15th and 17th for the Overland Expo. But more so, as such, Flagstaff has millions of visitors that come from all over the world. I do not foresee it advertising a data center as a point of interest. I myself, as well as Earth Month, does not want data centers. There's a lot to consider. Thank you for your valuable time and attention to this matter.
Do we have another public commenter? Okay. All right. Now I'm closing the public hearing, and my apologies for missing that online comment. And I think staff has heard that we would love to see this as soon as it can come back to us. And thank you. So I'm going to move down to the regular agenda. 12A, consideration and adoption of resolution and ordinance, short-term rental code updates. And I am assuming that we have a presentation.
All right, good evening. I'm Jessica Kittleson, Customer Service Director. Our team oversees our short-term rental licensing program. Tonight we're presenting the first reading of a proposed ordinance updating Flagstaff short-term rental regulations, including a fee increase, new safety requirements, and several code updates. We'll walk through the background, our current program status, and the key changes being proposed. I'm joined tonight with individuals from several divisions. We have fire, planning development, legal, who all played a role in developing these changes. And Rick Tatter will be joining me in the presentation. So first, for you, some background and history. Flagstaff has been working toward meaningful STR oversight since 2020, operating within the boundaries of state law at each step. As you know, we are prevented by the state from prohibiting STRs since the passing of SB 1350 in 2016. However, the passage of SB 1168 in 2022 gave us licensing authority, and since adopting our licensing ordinance in 2023, we've built a program that as of March 2026 tracks 1,119 STRs with a current 94% compliance rate, a strong foundation for the updates we're proposing to you tonight. Moving to our current state, in October 2025, we launched a public-facing map showing all licensed STR locations with the emergency contacts citywide. This portal also serves as the primary neighbor notification tool and gives residents a direct path to report any concerns. It's a meaningful transparency improvement that complements the proposed ordinance changes. We'd also like to provide you with a complaint update. Since launching the complaint portal in November of 2024, we've received 307 complaints via the portal, but the distribution tells an important story. Nearly 91% of STRs have received 0 complaints. The proposed fire, safety, and posting and background check requirements are responsive to the complaint categories we're seeing the most. So as you can see here, noise is the most common issue, followed by a combination of issues, so complaints with various miscellaneous issues, fire, safety, and combined concerns, followed by trash and parking, occupancy, and unlicensed operations. And we've also isolated that among the properties with multiple complaints, you can see that it is an isolated few that have multiple complaints. I'm now going to pass it on to Rick, who is going to show you our key changes to the ordinance.
Thank you, Jessica. Rick Tatter, Management Service Director. Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm going to go through some of the changes that we're recommending in our city code, but starting with what we propose for a new license fee. Earlier this year, Jessica completed an analysis, a financial analysis related to the costs that we are putting into licensing businesses for short-term rentals. In her analysis, she determined that the cost to manage that comes out to about $270 per location. With the state maximum allowed, we can only do a $250 fee. So we are recommending that we adopt a maximum fee of $250. We posted a 60-day notice on March 18th of this year. And with your adoption and consideration, we will have this effective for July 1st of this year. While we were in the process of doing the fee update, we decided to meet as a group and a team to talk about other codes changes we'd like to see to better align with state statutes and what we need in our community. Among these is providing better definitions and uses. Now within our defined STR, we include, we include what is excluded for units that are, STR units are excluded from non-residential uses such as businesses, banquets, special events, event centers are restricted through our definitions. Further, we define that special events, as those events require a TUP, temporary use permit, are also restricted for use from a short-term rental property. These definitions go in line with what we already have in our code for our short-term rental under prohibited uses, where it shares that short-term rentals are prohibited for non-residential uses, including special events. So really just adding that definition and aligning it to our allowable state laws. Further, we added a short section related to a requirement of a short-term rental owner must reside on a property when it contains an accessory dwelling unit that was provided a certificate of occupancy on or after September 14th, 2024. So that has been added to align with allowable state statutes. We did some cleanup on our neighborhood notifications. Our previous code was not quite aligned with what state was allowing. We had a code that said upon every renewal, they would have to give a notification to neighbors again. State code does not allow us to do that. We do that only on the initial licensing of a short-term rental or when it changes ownerships or so forth. So our code now aligns with the state statutes. We also defined what addresses, we cleaned up what addresses, what homes they are required to notify. So they are required to identify the adjacent properties, across the street properties, and diagonal across the street properties. That aligns with what the state is allowing. And with not having a second notification for renewal, we do have, as Jessica mentioned, the portal that any neighbor to these areas can actually go on a portal to get the contact information and learn more about what's in their community. Another sections, a couple sections that we added at our recommendations from this group is to add insurance and background checks. New insurances within the code that are allowed by state statutes for us. The insurance requirement defines that a owner must have appropriate insurance, minimum of $500,000 in liability for their short-term rental. And for our background checks, we adopt what the state allows as far as owner's responsibility to do a background checks on persons that are booking STRs at their properties and must do it within 24 hours of their stay in the short-term rental. Both of these two requirements that we added can be satisfied with an online marketplace such as an Airbnb or VRBO, where they may require at least or better requirements than what we are requiring in our code. And they often do when you're on a platform like those. The last set of adjustments that our team recommends is related to postings in the homes. We are recommending amending posting requirements on the property to include additional information for renters to understand specific needs of our communities or how our community codes are. On new or renewal licenses, as we go through those after July 1st, we're including additional information for 3 areas: the winter parking ordinance that's in place from November 1st to April 1st. We are also including information to what types of outdoor fire pits, barbecue grills, and those types of things are allowed during certain fire restrictions, as well as including a link to the fire restriction section on the city website for those individuals to seek out and learn more about. And lastly, as we heard a lot about trash complaints, we want to make sure that they understand the placing of trash and recycling containers per our code, as you must wait until 7 a.m. of the day of your collection to put those canisters out, and they must be removed by the end of the day of that service day. And the last thing we are also recommending adding to our posting notices in the homes is allowing for additional postings on our regulations as we feel appropriate on these notices, as well as the human trafficking hotline we thought was an important thing to include on the notices posted in each short-term rental. So now I'll hand it off to Fire Chief Gaylor to provide some new code sections related to fire safety and public protection. There he is.
Thank you, Rick. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to join this team and discuss these proposed changes. Really 2 areas that we're talking about with respect to fire and life safety in this particular case. And these requirements are what I would characterize as minimal. They're the types of requirements they would have in a newly constructed home, generally. And I'll also call upon you to perhaps remember in our community, in our county, we lost a family of 4 in a short-term residential due to carbon monoxide poisoning a handful of years ago. And so the importance of ensuring that these types of basic fire protections are in place are, to me, very important to protecting the traveling public. And so really appreciate the opportunity to make sure these standards are in place. The second element, the fire restrictions piece, as we have folks come to the community, if they see a fire pit, perhaps they haven't read the postings yet, and there is oftentimes an inviting urge to get out there and get a fire going in a fire pit. So this places a responsibility on the homeowner to ensure that those types of accidents do not occur, and that in times of fire restrictions in our community, we can rely upon that homeowner to take steps to make sure that there's not an extra risk posed by the fact that they have those types of amenities at their short-term rental. So these are the types of, again, fairly basic fire, building, and life safety standards that are placed into effect, and very supportive of that, very minimal in this context. Any questions now or later, I'd be happy to answer those.
Are any of the, or I guess Councilmember Garcia, did you have a question for the chief, or is it a more general question?
It could be for the chief, and it's a little bit general as well. But yeah, the chief. So my question, one of my questions is on some of the new regulations that you're wanting to put into place. How will those be monitored, or is it simply at the time when they're submitting their proposal for a short-term rental, they'll just get some literature that says this is what you should do?
Well, this is a regulatory in the context of to participate, these are the requirements in the short-term rental program. There is not a regulatory arm for the fire department, for instance, or for a, well, particularly for a fire inspector to go and ensure that these things are in place. So it's really no enforcement arm yet, but the regulatory piece is these are the requirements to participate.
Thank you for that.
And there may be more, better information.
What you provide is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have additional information for all the requirements on the license added to it when they apply and when they renew in this case. But these are our recommendations. I guess I'll take that. One more page.
All right, so Councilmember Garcia, you also had a comment?
Yeah, so I guess I might be on the questions, and it might be for Rick, but not for you, Chief. So what new things are we getting for the added cost to the short-term rental folks? Are we getting compliance officer, or what type of services are we going to be getting from that?
Really, it's covering the cost of the services that we're providing now, but it did provide for funding that we're going to recover more to fund another code enforcement officer to allow us to put more work toward short-term rentals. So that's part of your budget adoption as we go forward for that position. So it did recover the cost better so we can fund that position.
And Rick, for the sake of conversation and open meeting, could you let me know how the process goes for somebody who is applying with the city? Is it an online portal? Do they have to come in? Do you go out there and inspect what they have, that they're following all the rules, similar to what I asked the chief about the fire portion? What goes all into this, and how does it work?
Sure, so it's a pretty simple application. It's available online. You're supposed to go on and apply before you're renting out your property. It's available on the city's website, but we have it all through a portal where you can select your address. You're able to tell us which addresses you're going to notify your neighbors. And you go through and you upload any of your supporting documentation, and then our staff reviews all of it for accuracy. We also ensure that you have your transaction privilege tax license as part of that, and then you're generally issued your license. If you haven't, our third-party vendor also reviews the listing sites for any properties that may not have gotten a license. So we actively are looking for those, and those properties will receive a letter informing them that they need to obtain a license.
Thank you for that. That was my second question, was what about the ones that don't sign up?
Yeah.
And is the online companies that they're leasing to give you the information that there are some online, or how do you do it? Do you just rove around the neighborhood? Give me a picture of how you decide if somebody is in compliance.
So they'll provide us a list of monthly of all of the addresses that they've sent a letter to that have been non-responsive, and then we're able to see that. Does that
Okay,
answer the
thank
question?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so generally I support the increase and look forward to having more compliance officers that are able to look deeper into some of these some of the shortcomings that we've seen so far from folks that don't comply.
Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews?
Thank you. Really just more of a comment than a question, Rick. You said that one of the requirements is to have the trash cans out the morning of pickup by 7 o'clock. My trash gets picked up at 6. You may want to change that time frame.
Okay, yeah, that's in the solid waste code already, and we're just referring to solid waste code. So we'll share that with our public works team as far as timing wise.
I'd love for
I
them
hear
to
them early
pick up
often.
at 7 because we've missed it a couple of times.
All right.
City Manager?
Are we done with council questions? Okay. Mayor, I just wanted to just say thank you to this team that worked on this. I think all of you know how frustrating this issue could be because the cities have basically been taken our authority away over short-term rentals. And as you know, kind of bit by bit, we've been given more authority back. And I feel like what we're presenting today kind of utilizes everything we possibly can in state statute. So I just want to say thank you to this team. I also wanted to take this opportunity to recognize Calvin Adamson. I'm going to embarrass him. He's sitting at the back here. Calvin has been working with us this semester as a Stuart and Carrie Kent Fellow through NAU, and has been kind of working on some just different projects for us this semester, and this is one that he has been very interested in and has helped with this work as well. So I just want to recognize Calvin in the back as well. And Mayor, with that, I just wanted to say thank you to this awesome team.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I know this was a lot of work, but it's so important. And those numbers over on the right of the repeat offenders, I bet most of us know the neighborhoods that those repeat offenders, where that home is located. And if we can really get the complaints down so that people can live in their neighborhoods and enjoy their neighborhood, it would be a most welcome thing for everyone in Flagstaff. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to read the resolution.
Mayor, I move that we read resolution number 2026-19 by title only.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, City Clerk.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled 2026 Short-Term Rental Code Updates.
And a motion to read ordinance 2026-11.
So moved. I'll second.
Mayor, we missed a public commenter as well.
We did? Oh. Mary, I'm sorry. Mary Norton.
Thanks again. I usually come talk on this subject, and I love it when there's more than one thing of interest for me to come. Anyway, I live in Pinnacle Pines, and I'm active in the HOA and on the board and committees, and I'm the Firewise resident leader. So as I've explained before, we're a community of 208 townhomes, and we were at 20% short-term rentals. The map shows that we're down to 30, so that's 14.4% short-term rentals in our community. So I'm not sure if some have dropped off. We know some have sold, but also, maybe there's some that aren't licensed. Anyway, we're still disproportionate to the percentage that is seen citywide and in the area. I strongly support where this is going and utilizing all the tools, and I have been since the legislation came out. So I'm glad that we're utilizing the maximum fee and all of the tools. It emphasizes the seriousness. I just want to commend the work that's been done on the website, the contact form, the map. We often refer people that are having issues with a neighbor that, they say, oh, I didn't get a contact number, we steer them there, and that's been very, very helpful. But I'm really supportive of especially the postings regarding parking, fire restrictions, and trash, because that's where our top complaints come in, along with lighting. So we've been able to handle most of those through HOA rules and regulations, but to have these requirements as part of the city ordinance is really helpful and good backup. And I was just wondering, we also require and ask our owners to post that kind of information. We don't have any way to say we want to see how you've posted it, or are you sure you've posted it? So I didn't know how that kind of compliance will work out for the city. Will you ever do an initial tour of a brand new short-term rental to see that they've posted these things? Just kind of something that came up while I was sitting here listening to, how do we actually effectively implement these things and make sure everybody's on board. So anyway, thank you. I'm glad you've moved forward with this, and thanks for taking my comment.
Mary, my apologies and thank you. Jessica, did you want to answer that question about follow up on whether the proper information has been posted?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Anya Wendell with the City Attorney's Office. We have pretty much this ordinance is on the honor system. We're asking the property owners to take responsibility for compliance with our code. But Flagstaff is a very democratic community and active, and they voice their concerns when they discover things. And that's why you have increased code enforcement needs, and that's how we enforce our short-term rental code right now, is on a complaint basis primarily. If in the future the legislature gives us more money or allows us to charge higher fees for licensing and oversight, then I think at that time the city could or would have more resources to start a program where you have an annual inspection to make sure that the carbon monoxide detectors are in place and that their short-term rental licenses is posted. I think most businesses are pretty good about posting notices, and our notice is really pretty comprehensive information for the guests who are staying there. And as part of the city's push, I think 2 or 3 years ago that Shannon helped with, we also have the hotline for sex trafficking on that notice, because that's one of the activities that sometimes goes on in hotels or short-term rentals that if you're a victim, then you'd have access to that information. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, where were we when it was determined that I missed a public commenter?
Yeah, it was a motion, a second, and you were calling for discussion among council.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title III Business Regulations by adopting by reference that certain documents entitled 2026 Short-Term Rental Code Updates, providing for penalties, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Moving down to 12B, use of the Council Initiative Fund. Does staff want to say anything, or shall we just go on to the request?
Mayor and Council, Joanne Keene, your city manager. I did want to just talk about the requests that came in. If you recall, during the council budget retreat at the end of April, there was some discussion about a request from the Literacy Center, and Councilmember Aslan and Councilmember House both asked if we could bring this back for consideration. The request that was submitted from the Literacy Center was for $4,000 to support their English as a second language programming for adults, youth, and families. With some discussion with our internal team, we were able to identify $2,000 in funds from this year, and then the request would be $2,000 from council initiative funds. We are planning on also including this request in the budget that'll come to council for adoption in July. And then, as we did with other requests, we have asked Literacy Center to go through the regular process of submitting funds from the city. So with that, I also have some additional details on how much the council has available in their fund, and we were hopeful that since we don't have a lot of time before the end of the fiscal year, that potentially there could be a discussion about other items that could be utilized with those funds. You currently have $3,500 remaining, so if this $2,000 request is supported, you would have $1,500 left.
Big bucks.
I did that math all by myself.
Thank you. Councilmember Aslan, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I really appreciate the city manager's summation there. I think she said all that needed to be said about it. I really appreciate council's support moving forward with this. I think the Literacy Center has been leaving some money on the table in the past, and they're learning about that, and I'm helping them to learn about that. And I think it's such an invaluable resource for our community. This is a way to sort of jumpstart things, and looking forward for continued support in future budgets as well. But this is a great way to kick things off.
Thank you. Are there any other requests from council? $1,500. Go ahead.
So I was a little confused, city manager. We have $3,500 remaining. The request was for $4,000. Are you talking about them wanting us to fund them on an ongoing basis of $4,000? I was confused on why we wouldn't just fulfill the $3,500, or was the request for $2,000?
Councilmember Matthews, the request was for $4,000. So, you know what, we discussed internally that we do have some funds we could put towards this. So, outside of the council initiative fund, and so then we would just ask council for the other two, and then it would be included in the budget that council would adopt in July.
Okay, yeah, that's where I got confused. And then are we going to, I know we had a short kind of general presentation on all the outside agencies that we provide support to. Will there be an opportunity for us to discuss those and really see? I know some of them were lumped together, not specified, just to see if there's still something that this council wants to continue on with.
Councilmember Matthews, yes, I think we, at the April retreat, we did commit to providing a history of those outside agencies that we fund, and how, you know, whether there's a contract for those services. So yes, that will be coming back to council, and I'll likely send that out to you in my update to all of you.
Okay, thank you, because I know that, you know, we're looking for pennies and dollars for public safety and everything, so I really want to take a look at all the different avenues that we can out of our budget, and so I think it's prudent for us to at least know what was it, 1.5 million is going out to other agencies, and see what those are to make sure we all support those.
Correct, and the majority of those are contracts that we have with those outside organizations, like High Country Humane, for example, is our contracted shelter. But yes, we will get that to council.
Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that. I had trouble finding my unmute button. Thank you, City Manager, for bringing forward this proposal and finding those funds. I'm wondering, my question was actually about the remaining 1,500. If we either wanted to um, just provide that support now rather than so do a full 3,500 for the literacy center, or if not, if we wanted to look at opportunities to, I don't know if we were directly sponsoring or supporting any of the Northern Arizona Healthcare Mental Health Matters events. If we are, then I would propose sticking with this request. If not, then I would look at if there was an opportunity for us to reply the remainder of those funds to something under that programming.
City Manager.
Councilmember House, I think at this point, if council just commits to that 2,000, then I think that 1,500 will be available for you to use on something else.
So Councilmember House, are you proposing that the 1,500 go to the NAH Foundation for this month, mental health awareness?
Yes, I would then.
Okay, thank you. Any other suggestions? I'll throw out there that Councilmember Aslan and I were at the event where the truck rolled in to distribute food to the Flagstaff Family Food Center. Huge semi-truck. And I spoke to Ethan, their executive director, and the food was gone within a couple of days. So they are inundated with, their numbers are astonishing and they're growing all the time. So I would throw that out there as well. I know that we did find money in the budget for the Flagstaff Family Food Center, so they will be receiving money from the city in this next budget, and we've given before. So I just put that out on the table as well. Yeah, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. City Manager, can I ask, are we familiar with the NAH Mental Health Awareness Campaign? Is the city a partner with that right now?
Vice Mayor Sweet, we have partnered on events. We're hosting a couple of events, I know, at the city of Flagstaff. I'm not sure financially if we are supporting any events. I can check and bring this one back if you'd like to discuss it at a future date. I haven't seen any requests for funding for this initiative.
Thank you.
So Councilmember House, did you have a particular event or a particular area you wanted it to go to?
I would just ask that we look at and maybe get in contact with the Vice President of the Office of Philanthropy on what we could support. I know we've been in some conversations with them about the city supporting this programming in different ways, and with this being Mental Health Awareness Month right now, I would just like us to do whatever we can to look into it as a way to further that support and partner in this programming more intentionally.
Thank you. Councilmember Aslan.
Yeah, I have a question just for context. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this off the cuff. I'll be impressed if you can. So we have until the end of the fiscal year to spend all of this money, right? The end of June. And we started spending this year's purse last July. Do you know if, I'm trying to remember if there were other funds given towards the category of mental health this year?
Councilmember Aslan, you'll be very impressed that I do have the list. And I want to thank Georgiana and Stacy for providing it to me. I can provide a list. So council has funded the NAU Macy's Day Parade, High Country Humane, but it was for the spay-neuter, for the DPS officers and their families contributing towards that event. The Guadalupanas for the event on May 16th, Ballet Folklorico, the Big Read, MLK Gala, Market of Dreams, and then you also sponsored a lantern room as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
So council, would you rather vote on the 1,500 today, or would you rather think about it and have it on the closest agenda that we can?
The latter, I think, is just more.
Okay, so can we get this on the agenda for the soonest possible?
Yes, and I will reach out to Mark at NAH and get some additional details as well.
Thank you, that would be very helpful. Okay, so we have $2,000 for the Flagstaff Literacy Center, so I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move that we use $2,000 of the Council Initiative Fund toward Flagstaff's Literacy Center.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much, Council.
Any opposed? All right, so we're moving down to discussion items. 13A, Public Safety Community Survey Results. I'll remember everyone, I have a public commenter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shannon Anderson, your Assistant City Manager. I am here with Paul Bentz, who is from High Ground. We originally were going to do our presentation to Council June 2nd, as we had shared with you during the recent Council budget retreat. But after hearing that you might like a little bit more time, we decided to share the survey results today, and we've bumped up that presentation to May 26th, which is the earliest date we can do following the conclusion of the Citizen Committee on May 13th. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Paul. He can tell you a little bit about himself, High Ground, and share the results with you.
Sure. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Paul.
Oh, fantastic. Just want to make sure. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Bentz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Strategy at High Ground Public Affairs in Phoenix, Arizona. We are the 5-time winners of Best Polling Firm in the state of Arizona by the Arizona Capital Times, including last year. We do a wide variety of statewide, regional, and local survey research in the realm of public safety, education, healthcare, water, and a wide variety of other topics. Our goal is always accurate and unbiased survey research to give you an understanding of what the electorate is thinking and just sort of a general understanding of what's going on out there. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will work. This is always the scary part here. I'm attempting to share. Do you see the survey presentation data at this point? Fantastic. I see the thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. So we conducted the survey the April 6th through the 9th, so just about a month ago. It is a 400 sample live caller survey. So that means that every person that took this survey was done on home phone or cell phone. It was human to human, no AI, no texting, it was all live caller surveys, which is still the gold standard for survey research. Every person who took the survey, the 400 folks who took it, answered every question. So we have a full, complete data set for those individuals. Obviously, it takes more calls than that to get 400 completed interviews, but we got it over the span of April 6th through the 9th. This is again, a 400 sample, which has a 4.9 margin of error. So any of these answers could be 5 points higher or lower with a 95% confidence interval, which means if we conducted this survey 100 times, 95 out of 100 times, the data would come out within these 5 points that we are talking about. The other thing to note is that we balance it sort of based on what we expect the likely audience to look like. So that means we ensure that we've got a balanced age demographic, a balanced party demographic, a balanced regional demographic to ensure that it's a reliable replication of what we anticipate an overall electorate would look like in a November 2026 midterm election. One of the things that we asked about is, what do you consider the top issue facing the city of Flagstaff today? And it's probably not surprising to you as the elected officials, but the top two issues were both sort of cost related, with cost of living at 40.5% as the number one issue, and housing as the number two issue at 23.8%. This is a public safety survey, so I will note that way down on the list is 2.7% for public safety. We read this list of folks because if we asked 400 people potentially what their top issue is, we would potentially get 400 different responses. So we did give them this list. It was randomized to ensure that we got different answers. It wasn't just the first answer that was always answered. But what we see is public safety is not as high of a priority, which is one of the challenges when it comes to the public safety funding. In fact, cost of living across the board with all the age demographics as well as all of the regional demographics, it's showing cost of living. So you're a little bit, when it comes to public safety challenges, a bit of a victim of your own success, because when we ask them to rate the overall municipal services on a scale of 1 to 5, what we find is the vast majority of your municipal services are very well regarded. This is our first instance of a 5-point scale or a Likert scale. Think of it like a Yelp review or a star rating. The closer to 5 that you get, the better things are. The closer to 1, the less regarded they are. And the thing to note here on all of the topics is that your municipal services all have very good ratings, with police at 3.69 and 60% giving you an excellent or very good. Fire and medical among the highest at 3.88, with 70% giving it excellent or very good. In fact, all of your, with the exception of public works and streets, which I will talk about in 1 second, all of your items are well above 3.5, which is very high scores for municipal services. You're the first community that I've ever measured where parks, recreation, and open space was the top rated program at 3.98. But they're all very close, with the exception a little bit of streets and public works. But I will say for our streets and public works friends that are out in the audience today, do not hang your head. In fact, in pretty much every community that we do this type of research in, streets are much lower. And in fact, in most communities, streets are below 3. In general, people have biggest concerns sort of about street and public works projects. We find that to be a generally lower amount. So it's actually among the municipalities that we measure, 3.13 for streets is a pretty good score, in fact, despite the fact that it might be a little bit lower than some of the other services that we measured. Any questions about that so far?
None so far.
Okay, wonderful. So when we talk about the public safety proposals, one of the things to bear in mind is we do look at it through the frame of the fact that people right now are generally pretty happy with their police, fire, and medical services. They believe that that they're taking place and that people are generally happy. So there is a communication challenge. If there are needs that need to be expressed, overall your audience is pretty positive. So we're tasked with measuring 2 different types of proposals. So I'm going to go through a potential bond first, and then I'm going to go through a public safety sales tax. It's important to note that half the folks got the public safety sales tax questions first, and then the bond, and half of them got the bond first, then public safety sales tax second. The reason we do that is to eliminate any bias of, as you maybe have seen on electoral ballot positioning before. Sometimes one item gets slightly more support or less support because it comes first or second. So to eliminate that and ensure each of the items is measured on its own, we split it up in half. So again, each person gets every question, but sometimes the surveys can be in very different orders, which helps, again, let each question stand on its own. If I were to ask people, do you want to spend more money on public safety? We would have a high number of folks that say yes. If we ask people, do you want to raise taxes for public safety? The number does come down a little bit. But one of the only things that we can guarantee an individual will see over the course of an election is the actual ballot language. So we always replicate the ballot language itself to demonstrate where we're starting. And so in this case, we use similar to the ballot language, shall the city of Flagstaff be authorized to issue and sell 40 million in general obligation bonds backed by a secondary property tax to provide funding for public safety facilities, improvements, related equipment, vehicles, and communication systems. That's much more likely to what the electorate would see instead of, do you want to increase funding for public safety? So we start with the pretest on that, and we can see that the initial pretest on a public safety bond is about 46% yes to 44.7, almost 45% no. So a pretty even split between the two. We have a little bit more support among the younger electorate, as we see overall, with a slight plurality, but not a majority in opposition. So in the 50 to 64 and the 65 and older category. Our definitely yes is about 12 points here to definitely no at 21 points. So it's a little bit slightly more on the intensity side of things, leaning more towards yes, leaning more towards no than yes, forgive me, at the outset. And so we like to measure where things start and then give more details beyond that, so we're not, again, increasing any bias. From there, we go into the programmatically what could be involved. And so since there are a lot of public safety items, one thing you'll note is that because the bond is capital items, all the programs or projects in this section are all capital based. So that left on the sales tax side to do more of the actual like staffing and position based items of this. So there is a little bit of variation here, but again, these were all randomized and rotated. So some folks got fire station expansion and modernization first. Other folks got radios and communications first. Other folks got wildland firefighting facilities first. And this was on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 meaning not at all important to 5 meaning very important. And one thing to note as we go through these is every single one of these items was considered important by the electorate. It's the degree of importance that they see. Some folks, the closer we were to 3, the lower numbered items, they're still important, just not to the same intensity or the same level as some of the other items. So for example, on this slide, emergency medical equipment was among the highest at 4.05, with 39% giving that a 5 or a very important. When you compare that to a new fire station, that was at 3.22 with only 16% giving it a very important. I would note that the location or the idea of a fire station in general does typically get higher intensity if people know it's going to be near them or how it impacts the overall system. But fire station expansion and modernization does a little bit better than what specifically one fire station. Radios and communications were at the middle at about 3.6. Among the highest that we saw, and I did hear the chief talking earlier when I initially logged on, sort of fire and wildland firefighting just in general right now is certainly a higher rated issue. This was among the highest we measured, in fact, the highest on the capital side. Wildland firefighting equipment at 4.35 and wildland firefighting facility at 4.07 were among the top. We note that emergency and police vehicle repair at 3.43, and then law enforcement facilities at 3.0. Still supported, just there is a little bit of difference between some of the public safety or police related items and some of the sort of fire and emergency related items. The last two that we did measure, or last 3, is upgraded dispatch technology, criminal investigation tools, and emergency management supplies and equipment. We do all those, and I kind of went through them fast because this slide 11 is among the most important slides, just to give you an idea of how things stand. And so again, all of them are important to the overall electorate, but there are degrees of importance there. So you have these top tier items wildland firefighting equipment, wildland fire facility, emergency medical equipment. Those are sort of the top tier items. Emergency management supplies and equipment, upgraded dispatch technology, fire station expansion and modernization, and radios and communications are sort of in the middle tier. And then you can see some of the other ones that are a bit of the lower tier. This is not to say that you should use this measurement to determine what would or would not be necessarily in a proposal, but it does give, especially folks that are going to talk to the public about this, a good idea of what really stands out among the electorate. So instead of putting these items in, say, alphabetical order or in the size of the budget order, putting them in the order of which we see the voters really care about them can really help people focus and understand sort of what's in the proposal and put your best foot forward. Any questions on the project piece of this? Okay, from there, what we do is we do reason statements. And again, these were all randomized. The idea behind this is if we're trying to determine sentiment, what are the sentiments of the electorate? What's driving them? What is a motivating factor as they think about this? Because if I asked 400 people, again, what's your sentiment on this topic? I would get 400 different responses. So we find a very efficient way to do this is to measure some key ideas or some key concepts, reasons that we'd see over the course of a discussion or dialogue about this. So this idea of facing significant capital needs is at 3.65 with 22.5% strongly agree. That one, sort of the broad capital needs, does pretty well, but when you look at it more drilled down onto tools and equipment, that did very well at 3.82 with 29.5% giving that a strongly agree. So really specifically broad general capital needs, while important to the electorate, does not drill down or is not as helpful as the specificity of really talking about the tools and equipment that could potentially be involved in this type of proposal. This idea that potentially it would not be a tax increase, it would keep the tax rate the same, does pretty well at 3.38. There's some, doesn't do quite as well among the older segments. It is also has a higher unknown. Folks don't know if they necessarily believe that that anything like a bond can be conducted without some sort of tax implications, without a tax rate increase. This is probably one that could be fleshed out a little bit more or communicated more adequately to improve its believability overall. But what we're seeing is the tax rate piece of it is not as important as maybe sort of what is the benefits either from a capital needs perspective or an equipment perspective. On the other hand, you're facing a pretty sizable housing and cost of living concern. We saw this in the first question that we posed in the survey, top issue facing the community, but also the sentiment that housing prices and cost of living are already high. An increase in the secondary property taxes on residents will only making housing affordability issues even worse. 51% gave that a strongly agree. You're up against some pretty high concerns. This is not unique, to Flagstaff in that pocketbook issues, affordability issues. We're seeing this across the board on basically any sort of electoral proposal right now. It's been the same topic. It's been the same sort of driving force on every school survey that I've done in the last 6 months. It's also in any sort of municipal or public safety survey. I'm seeing very similar results where there's pocketbook concerns, not sort of the global. It's not interest rates necessarily. It's more of the pocketbook concerns that we're seeing driving the driving force among folks. We also do see that there is some sensitivities that maybe now is not the right time to raise taxes. And I recognize this goes right up against another one that says it's not a tax increase. There is a perception, whether or not we believe it to be true or not, and we do measure things based on what we expect to be said. So this idea that now is not the time to increase taxes when residents are already stretched thin, including seniors on fixed incomes, is another efficacious reason or something that is standing in the way of basically overall support right now.
Paul?
When we go through, yes.
We have a question here.
Okay.
Hi, Paul. This is Councilmember Matthews. Going back a slide.
Yes.
Are these, like the housing and cost of living, are those statements you made and then the person being surveyed said, yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree?
Yes. So we specifically posed that statement because we were trying to measure the sentiment. We go through this a lot. I know it's not necessarily a sentiment that you want to be shared with the audience. However, what we always say is you go to the doctor not just to find out what's right with you. You go to the doctor to find out everything. You do a full checkup. And so we do have to measure some of these more negative or adversarial statements because we need to see sort of how steep the hill is to climb and how believable what potential people will say against a proposal. So yes, that is verbatim what we read to the respondents.
So on the housing and cost of living, the increase in secondary property tax on residents will only make housing affordability issues even worse. That's not correct. So are you just saying, is that what you believe?
Well,
Because
whether or not
that's telling them it's going to raise, it's going to cost them more, and it doesn't.
Right. So, it's good that it's on this slide because while it is in fact not a tax rate increase, is a factual statement. What we typically find is those in opposition to any given item are not necessarily required to be factually accurate, unfortunately. So we measure it based on what we anticipate that they will say, not what we would like them to say. So that's why we need to it also is a good lesson here that if people were to say that it is a tax increase, that it is required or it is incredibly essential that that record is set straight, because it is this idea or even a notion that it would be an increase is something that would impact the overall proposal.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, we do pose it as an increase in taxes, despite the fact that it is not necessarily an increase. When we measure this at the end, we ask him again, knowing just what you know right now, you can see the post-test here is at 49% yes to 42.3% no. In a pre-test, we like to see items above 50 to 55% for that margin of error. That's typically what we like to see. In this case, what we actually see is in a post-test, we like to see it about 50%. That's not to say that we think it's going to pass with 50% exactly, but it is about measuring viability. And in this case, we're right about that 50% threshold, a little bit below it, but we're right in the sort of the viability range. And we do see telling people what it helps fund, educating the public about what could be involved from a bond proposal standpoint, with the exception of the 50 to 64 category, does move them in the right direction to be more inclined to support. Communication in and of itself for a bond proposal, it helps, as well as measuring some of those sentiments and expressing those capital needs. It's still below 50% slightly, but it does actually improve. In a lot of these surveys, we see the opposite. In fact, we'll generally see a high water mark at the beginning, and then it will decline. But in this case, we actually saw it start low and end a little bit higher on that. On the sales tax side, again, we start with the ballot language as we anticipate it would be. And so this one's even more of a mouthful. Base transaction privilege tax applicable to all taxable activities from 0.5, from 2.486 to 2.986 beginning January 1st. We do that because, again, this is what would be required. We don't get to call it a half cent. We don't get to, on the language, phrasing and discussion you can, but what people actually see, we always measure that because it's the most impactful beginning to start. And this one starts at a weaker position of 33.3% yes to 61% no. I'm going to spoil the post-test now just because I know that's probably a certainly surprising number. Just in and of itself, the idea of a sales tax starts very low, but when it's described what it actually would do and where it would go, it increases quite a bit. In fact, it increases to about 51%. So, but as a starting point, it requires quite a bit of public education and public discussion because it starts even lower than a bond as just a general starting point. And we see a very high definitely no to definitely yes. So it starts at a much steeper hill to climb, but the education of the public helps this one pretty significantly as we move forward. Partially to do with the fact that pretty much all of the items that we measured from a staffing perspective, while we saw some variability on the projects from a capital side, where some of the wildland fire and the fire station renovations did really well, but some of the other ones didn't do quite as well. from a staffing perspective, almost every single one of these was very high and a much more narrow gap of the support here, with most of them above 3.5. Some of the highest that we measured here included the additional wildland firefighters, which you'll see in a minute, but also the fire academy and training additional firefighters and paramedics were near the top of the list, as well as the emergency management personnel. So yeah, as I mentioned, additional wildland firefighters at 4.29, a little bit lower among animal control at 3.01. Airport law enforcement, I would say in the context of when this survey was conducted about a month ago, there was certainly more airport activities, not in your airport necessarily, but on a global discussion, or at least on a national discussion, that certainly impacted the airport security number overall, but that's among the lower ones that we measured. But as again, when we go through it, what we look at here is some of these top tiers. And as I said, the vast majority above 3.5, with a significant number closer to 4. And 4 are sort of what we expect are the home run or golden projects, the types of staffing and investments that people really like. And I think this is a big driver to the overall, the notion of additional wildland firefighters and paramedics, additional fire and academy and training, police training. All of those are a very top tier as wants from the community when they look at what a potential sales tax could invest. On the reason statement side, we see response times. This is one of the biggest, most effective arguments that we see on the side of doing something, is this idea that the emergency calls have more than doubled since 2008, while staffing levels have remained the same. Resources are stretched thin and soon will not be able to keep up with growth. To keep response times low and ensure that we can respond rapidly or quickly in an emergency, we need additional funding and to hire more staff. When voters hear this, they agree with it. What we see, though, is initially they don't necessarily know this to be a need because they're generally pretty satisfied. But 32% strongly agree with that, and impact on response times would certainly be a major selling point among the electorate. And then this overall idea of meeting the community's needs, that the provide our public safety services with staffing and equipment for fire, emergency medical services, police, airport, emergency management that meet our community's needs and protect our quality of life. The quality of life argument is another big driver that we see. This is pretty consistent with other survey research that we see overall. People do connect public safety with the quality of life as a major indicator there. When it comes to sales taxes concerns, it's less about impact on business and just overall impact on the community. There is a small concern about the regressivity of sales taxes. It feeds in sort of with that cost of living one that we saw, as well as the, households are stretched thin right now. Regressive nature of a sales tax would also be a concern that would need to be addressed, because it is a driving force, as we see with sort of the electorate. So your cost, when we put all of the statements together, the cost negativities are all sort of near the top. But when we look at it, their response times, tools, and equipment, and meeting the community needs are sort of the biggest force of what motivate people to support a program for public safety. And as I mentioned at the beginning, explanation of the sales tax will be essential if you decide to proceed with any sort of sales tax, because while it starts in a negative position, it actually ends in a very positive position at 50.7% yes to 43% no. So it's a pretty sizable turnaround, with not only folks moving from undecided to yes, but a decent number of folks moving from no to yes when they understand what it is. There's pretty much gains of double digits across the board, with the younger electorate being among the most that had concerns about a sales tax. And then you can see even up to the older segments, with the exception of 65 and older, that end up with a plurality on the yes, not quite a majority, but a plurality yes. All the other age segments, when described or explained what a sales tax would do, move towards the yes column there, as well as, across the zip codes, we see a pretty sizable gain across the board as well. So it starts in a difficult position, and then it improves a little bit. I mean, improves quite a bit, pardon me, over the course of the discussion with a little bit more explanation. Now, two more things, and then I will be happy to answer any questions. Finally, We asked if it were reduced from a half cent to a quarter cent, would that make you more or less likely to vote for the sales tax? And part of the reason we ask it this way is because if I asked another yes, no question, what we actually see is that it becomes a negotiation where, it's like either the foot in the door technique, oh, we started larger and now we're asking smaller in this case, or if I did it the other way, where we asked quarter cent all the way through and then came out with a half cent, it would be the, foot in the door or the door in the face technique. In this case, what we see is that there is about half of the respondents that are more likely to support that if it were a reduced size, but not so much so that it makes a major difference between what the yes number is currently and what it would be with a quarter cent. In fact, what we notice is the 41%, it says no difference. And then you have about 8% or so that would be less likely if you actually reduce the overall number. So in this case, what we see here is the juice is not probably quite worth the squeeze in reducing the quarter cent versus half. There's not a large enough differential there to really see that, in the data itself, that, the number of projects you can do, the projects itself and the staffing seems to be a larger driver than the actual size of the actual tax itself. And then finally, one other piece of consideration is if you were to put two items on the ballot, and we ask this a lot for schools when they've got, like, say, a bond and an override, which opinion comes closer to your own? I'd likely support both a bond and a public safety sales tax. I'd like to support only a bond. I'd likely only support a public safety sales tax. I'd vote no on both. Your no on both is pretty standard. 30% of folks vote no on everything. That's a pretty typical number. What we do traditionally like to see in this case is if you put more than one item on the ballot, we like the yes audience to be closer to 35 to 40% of your base, so that your intersection between the two isn't so drastic, isn't so needing to be so drastic. In this case, when we asked, basically the best we could do is a follow-up after people had heard about both. Which one comes closest to your own? You add the yes on both plus bond. They're at about 51%. The yes on both plus the sales tax is a reduced number of about 37%. So the sales tax, again, has a little bit softer. It does better on its own without the bond. If both items are on the ballot, the bond would likely receive more of the support than the sales tax would as part of the proposal. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, or go back. But that's what we found over the course of the survey.
Thank you, Paul. We do have a question. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Paul. This has been great information. I'm wondering just a couple of things, and if any of these are not things that you're prepared to answer tonight, that's totally fine. But I'm wondering what you would say about how the survey results really could help us shape our understanding of what Flagstaff residents are considering when we talk about public safety in Flagstaff, because it seems fairly clear that the community is valuing or highly valuing public safety overall or community safety overall, but there's a lot of hesitancy when it comes to how we fund it or how we pay for it. So how would you recommend that we really look at that split?
It's a wonderful question. Do you want to answer other questions, or do you want me to answer them one at a time, Councilwoman?
Go ahead and answer them all for Councilmember House, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Okay, Councilmember. So, based on my understanding, what I see right now is that your electorate does support public safety, but they do not believe or do not comprehend that there is a problem or that there's a challenge with funding public safety. They think it's headed in the right direction. They think your public safety does a good job. They are not under awareness or believe that there's a crisis or that there's a challenge. When we mention the staffing levels have not increased and there's challenges with response times, they respond well to those, but they are not generally aware that those are challenges that you're facing right now from a funding perspective.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's challenging because it seems, again, very clear that our residents are placing a lot of value on our emergency preparedness, on public safety investments, wildfire response, all of these things. While at the same time, and particularly, I go back to the questions that Councilmember Matthews was highlighting earlier about the focus on housing affordability and cost of living as being major concerns. I think one of my concerns with the way the questions were phrased is that if there wasn't something that went back and kind of corrected the perception that might have been behind the question, it leaves us in a place where people are left basically thinking this will negatively impact housing affordability or cost of living. So I'm wondering how we move forward from the survey to ensure that what we're presenting to the community lets them know that we are seeking to genuinely address both of those realities, both the concern around emergency preparedness and public safety at the same time as we're investing in affordability and cost of living without it seeming as though we're asking our community to choose between safety and affordability.
Thank you, Councilmember. One thing to note is that there's 400 people took the survey, so we're not perpetuating this broadly throughout your community in such a way that it needs to be addressed like that you've been spreading misinformation about the housing. The other thing is the way the question is posed is these are things you might hear from people regarding the issue. So it's might hear, it's not this is the official statement or the official position. This is a statement you might hear based on what you hear, what you've heard. Do you agree or disagree with it? So we make sure to couch it in a way that it's clear that it is not a statement of fact necessarily or something that really will move the needle. We have not seen survey data move the needle on one issue or the other. What this does tell me is that there is concerns from the public about affordability issues that addressing attacks for public safety will need to be addressed or at least answered in order for them to feel comfortable with wanting to make some sort of investment or pay some additional funding for public safety.
Thank you for that too. And I do want to be clear. I don't think that you were, I don't want it to be the impression that I thought that you were misleading the community. Essentially, that was a concern that rose just from how the question was phrased, but you addressed that well. So thank you for that. My last question then is just what I found really interesting was on the later slides where you were showing that the sales tax measure started with around 33% support that rose to just over or just under 51% after some of that messaging and explanation. For me, that suggests that residents or those that took the survey at least might not be as much opposed to the goals of this funding as they may be a little distrustful or hesitant around the impacts or structure of the proposal itself. Would you agree with that? And if so, what would you say we need to do in terms of messaging around this proposal to ensure that we're building that level of public trust and transparency?
Again, Councilmember, that's a great question. I think there's a little bit of sales tax fatigue in general. It's sort of it's relied on in a lot of cases for a potential solution for items, and there has been greater pushback in general skepticism about sales taxes and what they're used for and how they're used. But once it became clear it was about staffing, and I think the more transparent you can be with the plan of where it's going to be used and how it would benefit or how it would be able to give the staffing positions that are necessary, I think that would help a lot with just really clearly demonstrating to the public how you're going to spend the money. We've seen this in other public safety sales taxes, even putting in items like you're going to publicly report how it's spent, and those types of other transparency measures can be really helpful in creating confidence that the money's going to go where it says it's going to go instead of just being another placed where it generates revenue and it doesn't necessarily do what they say it's going to do.
Wonderful. Thanks again, Paul. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Paul. I had a question about one of your first slides that mentioned that public safety was kind of lower on the priority list. And then shortly after that, you showed that Parks and Rec and open space were pretty high on the priority list, which makes me want to assume that the public feels safe enough currently for them to not have public safety as a priority, and also to frequent parks, rec, and open space without, without needing public safety there to do so. That's the notion that I get. And I guess my question is, did you have any feedback on? Okay, let me walk that back a little bit. So that makes me think that the public is right in that we are currently doing pretty well on where we're at currently with the numbers. But a lot of what we're asking the public for is for our future growth projections and things that we're going to need that is outside of the timeline that we're in now in order to keep that safety at the level that it is currently today. Was there any questioning inside of, or any feedback that you got that made you believe that the people were thinking about our future expectations and not our current?
Councilmember, that's a great question. So just to clarify, that this question was, what is the top issue facing the city today? And so this was a forced choice. They had to pick one of them. So what we're expecting is what's number one. That doesn't mean necessarily public safety or something else. If we were to ask them to rank them or give more, that it might not be the number two, number three, but it's really helpful to get us what's a driving force and what's top of mind. And a lot of communities that will say public safety is generally in the top three, for example, and it being near the bottom here just indicates that I think people are not thinking of it as a top of mind issue. Secondly, these were, how would you rate these municipal services on a scale for excellent, very good, okay, poor, or failing? So what this demonstrates to us is most people think your services are somewhere between excellent and very good. So no, we did not do a follow-up about necessarily how does public safety relate to your parks and open space, or what do you think about the future of these items? Do you think they will be of this level in the future? This is mostly measuring where they are right now. We did not spend any time sort of extrapolating to the future, unfortunately.
Thank you, Paul. Bringing up these notions while we're looking at these at your report does make me want to encourage staff to use that as part of their educational piece. The future is really what this is about. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a question for Rick. With a 25-cent sales tax increase, what would that mean as far as additional revenues coming into the city?
We've updated those numbers, Councilmember Matthews. It was originally $7.5 million. It's now $9.1 million. For every quarter cent.
Yeah. So what's concerning to me, and I know this is great information for us to not only make a decision, but to decide our messaging. I mean, I too, until we started this citizen advisory group, I didn't know as an elected official that we hadn't been funding fully the needs of our public safety for years, and not knowing until this exercise, and our departments did a exercise to figure out what they actually were going to need in the next 5 years. So I can see where people are thinking, yeah, I mean, we're happy with it. We don't see, there's not a critical, it's not urgent, right? And so now we have a messaging issue because people don't understand that we need this. Even to the question, how important is a new fire station? Well, I live, 2 blocks away from a fire station. I'm like, no, mine's fine. I don't need a new one, right? And so if it wasn't, the question wasn't, when J.W. Powell opens up and we have 5,000 more households, how important it is, do you think it is to have a fire station there because the other stations wouldn't be able to respond timely? So all those things, it makes me nervous because you pointed out that you ask kind of negative questions because that's what the opposition's going to put out there, and people might believe it, that secondary property tax is going to cost them money. So, I'm concerned, and this is why I've been bringing up some questions about our budget inside as well. We've had the luxury for as long as I can remember, doing things that we love seeing, and I don't want to name anything because I don't want people to think, oh, she's targeting this department or whatever, but we do things because we think we can afford it, and now we're at this crisis where we have a $500 million, if fully utilized, deficit, and so now we have to think about our budget a little differently, and I think our community is going to want to see that before we ask and hit the easy button and tax them, especially on a sales tax, that we've also explored everything and, cut if we need to cut. Like, I just saw the state's budget approved yesterday, and they did a 5% across the board cut except for public safety and child safety. And we didn't do that back, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So this makes me nervous if we can get the messaging out right, because I think as myself, who's dug into it now pretty deeply, I didn't know how far behind we were, and so I don't expect the public to know at this point how important it is, and that makes me really nervous.
Mayor, can I just make a comment? Just a reminder, we will be coming back on May 26th to have a deeper discussion on this, and I think I just want to clarify that we have been funding public safety, but it has mainly been with one-time dollars. Last year, we did a significant market increase. I mean, throughout the years, we have been funding public safety. So I just want to make sure we get that message out that we haven't not funded public safety. But Shannon will be presenting on May 26th, and I think we'll have more in-depth numbers during that discussion.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome, Paul. I had to step away briefly, so I don't know if you went over this, and I apologize if you did. I hope I framed my question correctly. So did some of the answers vary depending on the amount of funding that the item would require? So in other words, people may be, 47% for the bond and whatever, 51 for the tax, but on each category, would that change depending on not what the item was, but the amount of money it would take to fund that item?
So like when we asked about, Vice Mayor, thank you for the question. We did not give them a cost associated with it from that perspective. And we also did not give them like a budget item for what a new fire station would cost versus emergency medical equipment. This is more of what sounds good or what items do they think are of greater importance. They did not have budget items or budget amounts associated with them. And we did not say the average cost the average household because that's not necessarily required in the ballot language either.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I am going to take public comment, and we have Mr. Casey Gonzalez.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Leadership, the two that stuck it out to the ninth inning here. Thank you. Sitting back there, I don't know if I want to be extremely proud of police and fire and dispatchers that are doing a great job and we don't know the full extent, or the public doesn't understand the full extent, or be a little mad at them for not sandbagging some days and really showing what's going on, because they do an amazing job, and that's why we're here talking about this. Or they do an amazing job, but we've got stuff happening, and that's why we're here. And start it with what I always do. You know, a difference of opinion is not a difference of purpose. We're all here to get to the same endpoint. We might have some different ideas on how we get there. And I'm sitting over there thinking and looking over at the city's mission, and the first two words on there, to protect. I think those should be bolded. And when you look at the definition, to cover or shield from exposure, injury, damage, or destruction, to guard, to maintain the status or high integrity of, especially through financial or legal guarantees. And that's what we're sitting here for, and that's what this ask is about. We're talking about a small percentage through a half-cent sales tax on a ballot measure and a separate bond to fund some capital projects. They're there to close the gap on some large dollar amounts that we need in public safety to continue to meet that mission in protecting the community and the residents. Over the past several months, there's been a weekly meeting with an awesome group of community members, city leadership, public safety folks that have been looking into the real behind the details of public safety, pulling the curtain back a little bit. As Paul stated, polling numbers show that public safety members, we've done too good of a job in certain areas. We're not talking about any glut or greed within this ask. Through a lot of relationship building with city leadership over years, we do have a competitive pay plan within the state. Our pension is one of the few that's fully funded within the state, and we have apparatus and vehicles that are in better shape than they've ever been. What we did begin to look at is the overwhelming need behind that as the population grows and buildings go vertical, and as we look at the wildfire threats that always exist. I can tell you the ability for the public to feel safe currently is coming at a high cost to our work-life balance, and that's evidenced in the approximate $3 million in overtime costs that police and fire will face by the end of this fiscal year. I'm born and raised here. I want to stay here. I want my daughters to stay here. Public safety should never be a contentious topic. I can get how we fund it can be a deeper discussion, and that's what we're going to engage in over the next couple weeks and ongoing as we get onto the ballot. It's making the hard decision to do the right thing now so that we're not making a harder decision down the road. And had a few more things to say, but red light's blinking. So that's where we sit right now on what we're talking about. And I'm more than happy to express more if we have a hold.
Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure you could have done this yourself, but Casey, I'd like to hear what else you were trying to say.
Get out. Okay, thank you. There's going to be a lot of conversation about how we get to proper funding, and I'm not here to point the finger at anybody or any group, and those conversations will happen about how we ended up here. And what I can encourage is that we learn from the past and go forward and not end up there again. I'm not here to fearmonger and say that the sky is falling about the risks that are coming down the line. I can tell you as someone with 15 years in fire and my day-to-day now managing the 911 dispatch center that covers both police and fire, I'm cautiously pessimistic that if we don't make the hard decisions now, we face much harder decisions in the future. The ultimate cost will come at the expense of our forests, our homes, our businesses, our residents, and the members of the public safety community. We started the meeting with talking about a law day proclamation. We talked about short-term rentals and protecting residents and folks that come here and visit. Any discussion on taxes is not fun, but our long-term ability to meet the mission of protecting the city is what it's all about, and it sits in the 14 hands on the dais and the 7 voices that are up there. If the hard but correct decision is made to put this on the ballot, we will begin the arduous task of educating the 49,685 registered voters of this city, and that's what will fall on us as the members of public safety going forward. So that's my ask to you, as a half-cent sales tax with more discussion to come. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Casey? Councilmember Matthews? Oh, Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Casey, for your comments. I know you said that you didn't necessarily want to dive into some of what we may be facing in the future if we don't pass this type of funding. But I'm wondering if you would like to take just a moment or two to share some of what we would be facing if we're not able to fund this. Yeah, I know you already spoke a little bit to wildfire and community safety risks and those sorts of things, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to expound.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember House. It's really going to come down to personnel, being able to adequately staff and meet the needs of an increasing population, vertical growth in the city. Every building that's going up is going multi-story vertical. While we have the minimums of equipment to kind of meet the need most of the days, we don't always have it. We don't have the proper staffing to always staff it. Every firefighter that exists in Flagstaff is multidisciplined, all hazard, all risk. We're all structure firefighters, we're all wildland firefighters, EMTs are paramedics. We cover the gamut with all of it. With that comes, on any call that comes in, you are now pulling resources over to that call, not available to the next call. We exist right now as sort of a one large incident fire. We rely a lot on mutual aid through other agencies. Summit, Highlands are the immediate ones, but we also exist with that large incident that happens, a structure fire that may take 6 or 9 engines, and that's it. So another incident happens, we don't have the other bodies to go out and do it. And those are our biggest things that we're facing, the personnel, keeping stations updated to be able to house the equipment, house the people, training for paramedics, EMTs. The wildfire mitigation is always there. We live in that threat every day. Happy for a little May snow today. But you know, that's some of the days you just pray that nobody does anything out there because we may not have enough personnel. So those are the big ones: personnel, ongoing apparatus, stations, and the ability to be able to adapt to a growing community.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I guess this question is to the manager's office. Mainly, we heard earlier Councilmember Matthews talking about staffing issues, and I'm curious if you guys could kind of extrapolate data from the past where the staffing issues didn't have as much to do with budget, if that's a thing. Like we just didn't have people that were wanting to be police officers for whatever reason, or they were going through or we had a turnover rate that was excessive and we couldn't meet those. If you could work that into what were the future presentations, so we have a better understanding on if it was simply funding that was holding us back, or if it was something cultural within the police department. And I say this because there is an overarching blame put on this council and other councils where I don't know if it necessarily aligns with the truth, in that if not, in my opinion, if not for this council being loud as we were last year at the budget retreats, after listening to our chiefs and our staff members who really advocated for their positions, we may or may not be in this position now. In other words, we have been working on this, at least the council I've been on, diligently. Now that we've heard last week in the police chief's comments that we are almost up to snuff for one of the first times when it comes to having as many officers as we were wanting, which is also important to highlight that was part of our priority sets that staff and manager's office carried out. These facts, illuminating these facts for the public and for those who are concerned and who may not, who may have concerns about our priorities without understanding that these are and have been our priorities, that's why we're here, might change how the vote goes down. I'm seeing it out in community meetings where they're just angry with us and blaming us in places where if it wasn't for us, we wouldn't be having those community meetings. So it's a very strange place to be, and I would like the record to reflect what the causes of staffing issues have been up till now, and how things have been prioritized up till now, seeing that we are starting to reach that level of current expectations being met, and maybe framing this ask in what I see as most relevant for future expectations and growth expectations for our future in the community, and how we can educate the public on that. Because if we, in my opinion, if we stay with current staffing, you know, as we grow, that's not going to work out, and that's why we need to stand behind making these changes and putting this on a future election. Above and beyond the facts that Casey brought up, and that's the work-life balance, the overtime that's being paid. There's been a lot of our staff that has gone the extra mile to make things as good as possible here in Flagstaff and to make the community feel safe. So safe that they might not even consider this a priority. But as we grow, our current capacity will not be able to reach the standards that we want to live by and have that safety for our future generations.
So I'm happy to respond to that, Councilmember Garcia, and I hope that I hit all the points that you made. So we talked a little bit about staffing in our conversation with council on March 24th, because we have received a lot of questions from our citizens committee members about how did we get here. And so we really were trying to depict to that committee that it's not that we're not investing, but there's a certain dollar amount, right? It's just like our home budgets. You have a dollar amount you have to live within. And when you look at the cost that increases over time for personnel, it's quite expensive. And so I think what you might be referencing that you hear in the community, I mean, I've been with the organization for just over 20 years, have been part of the budget process for almost that long. And at one point we were hearing from the police department that, yeah, we're not asking for more because we're having a hard time just keeping our vacancies filled. So that was something that was talked about in the past. The police department also had not done any type of staffing study. So we started there. That was the process that informed the need that we brought to the citizen committee, as well as what we've been talking about with council. The fire department was a little different. They understood their needs because they've had multiple studies over time that actually demonstrated that they need more staffing. And so I think they were kind of in two different places, and we knew that as an organization, so we tried to do our best to prepare for this conversation, knowing that we were going to need to have it anyhow in order to meet that fire demand on the fire department side. So I'm happy to talk about that again in our upcoming presentation. It actually helps me because I've been going back and forth as to how much do you repeat and how much do you not, right? Because I don't ever want to spend your time talking about something we've already spoken about, but if it's important, we're happy to do it.
Well, it's important to me for everyone to be included in the process, and not everybody goes to every meeting or hears everything that we say. I know that it takes more time for redundancies, but it's clarifying to the community and the public. And we don't have I mean, we of course we have a second chance at this, but I don't want it to go there. We have an important need that needs to be filled. We have found a mechanism to fulfill that need, and if the public wants to support it, then the time is now. And giving them the tools to make that decision, all the tools to make that decision, is the most important to me. Go ahead, Casey, you had something.
If I could just add something too from it, I don't, and I want it on the record as well, what's being spoken about today or what's being asked in this, where we're at on the labor side of it, we're not making an indictment of anybody that sits on this council or city leadership in the past. Currently, we can sit here all day long and discuss the past and when this point hit this or when this decision was made for that. We're not looking to do that with anything. We're looking to move forward and see. We're at a point right now in public safety where we're holding the line, but it's a slight hold right now. And if we don't continue to do the right thing, we've had it with the way the city addressed the pension debt. And like I said, we're one of the few in the state that has a fully funded pension with a reserve to keep it funded. Much appreciated on that every single day. Probably the first biggest correction that's ever happened that I've seen since being here. We have apparatus through fleet purchasing and capital that's been new apparatus coming in. We have the other one that I mentioned in there, pay is competitive within what the state is asking. Again, need to keep up on that. Us as the fire side haven't had a lot of turnover over the years. PD has, and that's one of the things we sit at looking when we talk about the budget in the past. It was always kind of a wash because there was people not filling the full-time positions in a lot of areas, and so that overtime cost was eaten up by cost savings of not having fully staffed positions. For the first time in a long time, the available slots, and I'll say that they're fully staffed, not adequately staffed, but the fully staffed on the PD side, not speaking overly for them, but being over there every day now, positions are filled. There's not as many vacancies that existed. Within dispatch, we're finally at a point of being better staffed than we've ever been. We're not running on 10, 12 vacancies that eat up that overtime cost, and the same with the fire side. We have people coming in. It's just, again, it's a cautious holding of that line if we don't continue to keep doing the things we've been doing, which we appreciate very much and want that on the record for current council, previous leadership, current leadership. We appreciate all the positives, and we just want to keep going that direction, and we're not turning this around into let's look in the rearview mirror for what's going on.
Right, I appreciate that commentary, and yeah, I agree, it's no time to take a victory lap just because we're starting to kind of creep up to that spot, but you also brought up some other things that past councils had to deal with, and that is bringing up the pay rate. Like, these are actionable things that they had to do in tangible time at that time in order to make us get to the point to where we are today, where we have to ask for a tax. So, you know, any misnomers about past councils, present councils, future councils, from what I remember seeing it happen, there has always been progress, and we have finally gotten to the point now to where we can really start investing in the future, and we have caught up to where we currently are, holding that line and needing to have a more robust presence for the impacts of our future. Thank you so much for answering those questions.
And don't go anywhere, Casey. We have another question for you. Councilmember Matthews?
Hi, Casey. Thank you for hanging out and giving us your perspective. It's really important. A week or so ago, I was talking to a couple of law enforcement officers, and I was surprised to hear there's quite a few that don't live in the city limits because of cost of housing, right? So then they come up from Camp Verde or Williams or whatever, and a lot of them couch surf and stuff. And you mentioned the overtime, $1 million in overtime. That's a lot, and I think about the mental health and the mental stress on our firefighters. Are you seeing the same situation where our first responders, our firefighters, are living outside city limits, and so that's just an additional strain, you know, pulling the string really tight, you know, ready to break at any moment. Is that an issue also in the fire department?
Councilmember Matthews, thanks for the question, and I would say yes. What we're looking at now is outside, not just the city limits, but even, you know, when you're getting into Kachina, Donny Park, kind of outside the Flagstaff general area of what's recognized as Flagstaff. We do have the most affordable place for our members to purchase a home, own a home, and still make it to work relatively easily is in Williams. And we've had several members purchase homes in Williams recently because that's where they can afford it. We've had members with two, you know, husband and wife both working, and go to apply for a loan, and they get a decent amount, but not anywhere needed to purchase a single-family residence here. And so they have been looking towards Williams, you know, further outside when you get into Baderville, going even further out there, into Belmont, further out, Parks. And then we have recently had a couple members that have left for other departments down in the valley, one actually going up to Colorado as well, taking a position up there. So we have been seeing that as well, along with PD.
Thank you for that. This one is kind of directed at Shannon. When you come back, will you be presenting us, because a lot of the total ask, if we were trying to get to that 500 million, the total ask, will you be presenting like what we need currently now versus, and then what we need in 5 years, because because of J.W. Powell opening up in the next several years, we're gonna need a fire station, and that's, X million, and, just to see the timeline, so we have a better visual on what's critical now. I think I understand from fire and PD that operationally, collectively, I wanna say it was 1.5 million operationally, every year, on top of, and that's just what we need. And I could be off on the numbers, but that's what I understand. And then we have growth in staffing. I think the chief said last week that they're close to what's approved staffing, not what is needed. And the chief, and you indicated that, or maybe it was Garcia that said, it was hard retaining employees. So just happy to have what we've had. And I think some statistics show that we haven't increased personnel in a long time as far as growth numbers. So Shannon, will you be presenting that to us while we're having this discussions now on the dais on giving us a picture of what we need currently and what we need over the next 5 years and where that falls into play?
So we are, given the feedback from the citizen committee, we have chosen to keep those items that we're funding with one-time dollars in the general fund, funded with one-time dollars in the general fund. Because there was quite a bit of concern that they didn't want us spending all this possible new revenue on just what we're doing today. They wanted to ensure that if we were going to bring in new revenue, it was also going to bring in these new resources that police, fire, emergency management, and the airport needed. So the only time that you see something in a current operation within what we're going to bring you on May 26th is if it's a deficit. So for instance, if you have a personnel member that's funded with a grant, or you have a personnel member who we've been funding with one-time dollars, which is not what we choose to do as an organization because there's a lot of risk associated with that. Those are the things that would be in that current operations bucket. But anything that can remain with a one-time dollar within the general fund, that's where it will stay. So I wanted to give you that background because that's shifted a little since the last presentation that we brought to council. We have refined quite a bit. We went from $511 million to $407 million. We are now down ongoing to $18.2 million. All of these groups have come together and said, okay, if in fact the citizen committee is going to recommend a $0.25, what can we fund with that? What's our highest priorities? Okay, if they gave us another $0.25 and so we had a ½ cent, what would we fund with that? So we have really refined that list to the most crucial needs. I say most crucial, right, because they're all needs, but just like with our home budget, if you only have so many dollars, you have to decide what you're going to be able to buy with that. And that is the exercise that this team has gone through at least twice, maybe 3 times, in order to continue to refine that list to meet what it is the citizens feel is affordable. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on when we come back to council. As a team, we've been looking at, okay, when do you purchase it within a 10-year plan? Because as you know, that then gets to your total cost. But we typically don't do that level of detail in the presentation because it could get super confusing. So we've been really focusing on what is the item and what's that total cost.
And lastly, will Paul's company, are we utilizing them to come up with a if the council decides, yes, let's put a sales tax or a bond measure on the ballot this year, are we looking for outside counsel to help us with the messaging? Because it seems clear that a lot of people, like Casey said, we've done such a good job, but people they're not worried about it because they show up. We've got great law enforcement and fire, and helping people understand that the need is still very great. So do you have a plan on that?
So just as we have done in previous elections, we use the work from a community survey to help inform us. It identifies what messages resonate with folks, so you make sure that you're maximizing the understanding of those areas. It also helps you identify what are those areas that people don't have any understanding of, or that they don't know that there is a need. Certainly, the work that High Ground has done is going to inform what we work on. But as far as our messaging, our advertising, we actually work with our internal Discover Flagstaff team. We did that when we did the bond in 2022, found great results. So that is our plan again this time. It also helps the city with how much we're expensing as well when we're using our internal capital and resources to be able to do that work.
Great, thank you.
And Councilmember Matthews, just to add on, just a reminder that the city can educate, not advocate. So there could be, if this does move forward on a ballot, there could be an outside organization that's doing the advocating work and using an outside consultant.
Casey, Chief, Deputy Chief C, Chief Connolly, thank you for all the work, and all of your officers and firefighters. Thank you for all the work putting together the needs assessment, and thank you for stewarding the project through the Citizens Committee. That committee has been meeting since November, several times a week. And I heard from committee members that many of them, when they came in, were a hard no. But hearing the information, I think that no one gets excited about raising taxes of any kind, but even the most fiscally conservative among them, I heard them say that they support putting something on the ballot because they recognize how much of a need there is and how there are some really large investments that we need to make, and those aren't the kinds of investments that can be made with one-time dollars in our budget. So thank you for all that work that you put in, and thank you to the Public Safety Citizens Committee. I see Michelle back there. You sit on it. Appreciate all the work. Jumps from regional plan to Public Safety Citizens Committee. Thank you, thank you. And I want to remind anyone watching this that you can find information about the Public Safety Citizens Committee. All the meetings are recorded and are there. All of the materials are available there at connect.flagstaffaz.gov. And I do hope that you'll take a look at that. And I believe that the next meeting is May 13th at Public Works, 3:30. Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay. Is there also one on 5/13? Okay, so the next meeting is tomorrow evening from 5:30 to, from 3:30 to 5:30 at the Public Works Building on Old Route 66. And yeah, Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You're welcome to have the last word if you want it. I appreciate you being able to call on me. So I'll just go ahead and wrap this in a bow. I want to thank Paul. You know, I know you don't do your services for free, but scientifically accurate polling is invaluable. And the observation I want to make is that I'm highly encouraged by the polling that we've seen here. It's consistent with what I know about Flagstaff, which is we're willing to tax ourselves for important things that we find valuable and we know that we need. And we're on the cusp of being able to hit the ground here with a successful path to victory for passing a bond measure. And, you know, I spoke at length a couple weeks ago about all the things we've been doing over the past several terms to keep afloat and to, you know, really enjoy some successes out there, especially with the pension stuff. Tonight, the care team wasn't mentioned again. I really think that goes under, underspoken, but we really need to just highly tout the success of that project, how innovative it is, how cost-effective it is, and how much of a relief it is for police and fire to have that team out there, and how much we want to up the game on that as well. And I'll just end by saying, while the city can't advocate, it can only educate, candidates can advocate. And being on the campaign trail all summer, anticipating November's election, I will be out there advocating like heck for getting this thing passed. And I think we're going to be in a good position to do that. I'm sure Paul could talk about other communities where he's done similar polling, and the results were just a dismal reality for those who wanted to see this happen. And we're not that. And so we have a lot to be grateful for as we look at beginning this process.
Mayor, if I may, while individual council members may have on their own time the opportunity to go out and talk about it from an advocative role, we as the city wouldn't be doing that as a council or using city resources to do it. We're not allowed to do that. Just wanted to make sure we could clarify that for everyone. All good.
Thank you. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Paul,
Thank you.
very
Have a good day.
much. All right, moving on to open call to the public. I do not see any. And next, we have announcements and updates to from council and city manager. And just a reminder that we changed this section to be simply announcements and updates to from council and city manager. So, Councilmember Spence.
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember House.
Nothing this evening. Good night, everyone.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I do have a couple of things. Today, I attended the Missing and Murdered Indigenous People, I wouldn't call it a ceremony, but gathering at NACA, and thank you for hosting that. I also attended an event held at Alpine Pizza in recognition of Economic Development Week, and we did a tour of all of the new businesses going in on LaRue Street. It has really been revitalized, and I just thank the team for all of their work in that. And to top it off, right before this meeting, I went to Lowell and attended the Moon Tree ceremony and was able to make some comments. It was very cool. I just love Lowell, and I say it all the time. And the Moon Tree, you should look it up. It has a great history to it. And tomorrow, I will be attending the Public Safety Community Meeting. And Thursday, there is a Mobile Haven meeting at 6 p.m.
Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you. The only thing I'll add to that is a Metro Plan Executive Board meeting Thursday at 1 p.m. Thank you, and sorry I made you nervous there, City Attorney, with something I was perfectly within my wheelhouse to say.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to mention that we have the kickoff to Ride Your Bike to Work Week starting next Monday here at the City Hall at 7 a.m. We heard all about all the other activities that are going to be happening during the proclamation reading earlier, but that's one that I think is an excellent community asset and something I am going to be looking forward to now that I am able to attend more frequently. And Madam Mayor, you mentioned that we had changed our process to only mention where we've been, where we're going, what we're doing. So that means that I can't mention that May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month? Right on. Well, thank you. I just wanted to mention, not just for motorcycles, but also pedestrians, bicyclists, and anything outside of a car. May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. So motorcycles are smaller and harder to see. So please look twice, check your blind spots, and give riders a little bit of space. Riders, please wear your helmets. Stay visible. So when you're dancing around in those lanes, people can understand where you're at and what you're doing. and ride defensively. Be safe, don't speed, all the good things. But that goes doubly for bicyclists and pedestrians as well. We're coming into a season where we're going to want to be moving outside of our cars. I personally have been taking the bus, walking, biking almost everywhere, every day, except for today I drove my car. And not only am I happier, but I'm also getting to know this town better and the people in it. So I expected a lot of people are going to be heading in that direction. And for us people that are driving cars, it is extremely important to slow down and keep your eyes open for those folks out there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Just to dovetail off that, I wanted to bring it up. Paul Muth left, but I noticed, this is just a public safety concern. I was on Beaver turning left on Butler, and I've had other people tell me the same thing. The light for me to turn left went green, and so was the pedestrian. It's a good time to walk, which is very dangerous. You know, I saw somebody walking across the street, and I just noticed they've got the go light to walk, and I've got the go light to turn. So I don't know if somebody needs to check out the light switch. And I mentioned it to a couple of people, and they said, "Yeah, I noticed that as well." So I think it's weird. Last Thursday, I was at the British Phone Booth Library and Accessibility Library too, with the mayor and vice mayor and Garcia. Yesterday, in the freezing cold, we did the wonderful groundbreaking for the Montalvo STEM Education Center, which is really exciting. Scott tells us it's going to be built in 8 months, so I'm really excited about that. That goes against my speed of government comments. I too was at the NACA Murdered and Missing Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Day this morning. It was very moving and very just touching. I too was at the Economic Development Week and spoke at Alpine Pizza. And it's just amazing the businesses that have came into LaRue over the last year or so. Tomorrow is, I'm cooking a bunch of spaghetti. I have a friend that has a ministry that cooks for the Flagstaff Shelter Services once a month, so I'll be bringing a couple of gallons of spaghetti and noodles, as well as Recovery Court tomorrow is at noon. In the Superior Courthouse. I enjoy going to that once a quarter. And Thursday's the Indigenous graduation at NAU. So that's what I got going on.
I have written about, so I write a monthly column for the Flagstaff Business News, and my April and May columns are about wildland fire, forest health, and insurance issues. So if you can look it up online or you can pick it up in person. But I want to thank all of our fire crew, not the entire crew, but those who sat down with me to answer questions and to help me get a more in-depth knowledge on a couple of things so that I could communicate it to the public. So that's it. City Manager.
Mayor, Council, just a couple of quick updates. I'm providing an update to the Northern Arizona Realtors on Thursday. Just they've asked for a city update, and then Sarah Dechter will be joining me to also give an update on the regional plan. And then just a reminder, and Mayor, I know you're speaking, I think Friday night or Saturday, that the Cocodona race is happening right now. So if you see runners coming through town, say hello. They'll start arriving in Flagstaff probably tomorrow, but 250 miles from Black Canyon City to here, so it's pretty impressive. So, and the mayor, I think, is going to be with the last runner, I think, on Saturday. So.
The first and the last.
Oh.
So 6 a.m. through until the last person comes in.
Till every single one of them?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So whoever you are out there, if you could speed it up a little bit, that'd be cool.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Good meeting, and we are adjourned.